Hello everyone and welcome to This Nintendo Life episode 190. My name is Nbz, I'm here very full of pizza, to be honest with you. I bought there's a Domino's deal right now that is 2 pizzas, well they're $7.99 for any size, and I was like, okay, I've got to get 2 of those. And so I had 1.5, actually no, I had 1 yesterday, and I had more today, and I've still got more left. So I'm very full here.
Do you find yourself constantly drinking water after you have a Domino's?
Yes. That's why I deliberately got a full glass of water here ready for this show, because I know my throat is going to be dry. Of course, I'm joined by Bally as always. Hi, Bally.
Hi, Nbz. I'm doing good. Pizza. God. I'm impressed you got a good deal on a Saturday, because normally they do the whole Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yeah, so they used to do, I remember at university I got 2 for Tuesdays. That was a solid deal. But
what do you get on your pizza?
Pepperoni, and then so I went for a Donna pizza.
I tried it.
Yes,
it's underwhelming. It was fine.
It sucks. It's not very good. I am not a fan of it. But joining us, we're not alone, Bally, in our pizza discussion here. We are joined by a very special guest, Dan from Project Falcon Punch. Dan, welcome to the show.
Oh, hello. Thank you very much for having me. I also want to say I had no idea that this offer was on Domino's.
Yeah.
I know what I'm having for dinner tomorrow night now.
Absolutely, yeah. I believe you can do $7.99 if you want to collect and just get 1 pizza. If you want to get it delivered, you have to do 2. And of course I did 2, because how am I not going to do that? But I do not recommend that you get the Donna pizza. The amount of Donna on the pizza just wasn't up to snuff. It just wasn't.
Donna to tomato ratio was...
Yes.
I do not like tomatoes on pizza. Tomato sauce, absolutely. But actual chunks of tomato, can't handle it.
Yes.
Yeah, same.
Great. Well, Dan, thanks for coming on. I've watched your stuff. I was going back and looking through the Project Falcon Punch YouTube channel. I was like, wait a second, this thing's 9 years old. How old am I? What is going on?
Oh, yeah. This is the 10th anniversary, actually, this year, 2021.
Wow,
the channel started in 2011, yeah.
That is nuts. But I've been watching since the very beginning. I think before you were even there, like when Liam started the channel. And I went back and I was like, because YouTube does this crazy thing where it remembers every video you've ever liked in the history of your account. And so I went back and I was like, sure enough, all those first videos, I've got likes on all of them, so I'm like, yes, I have been there since the beginning watching that channel.
So yeah, hardcore fan.
Absolutely, yeah.
But you're right, I wasn't there at the beginning. I was a sort of a late addition.
Yeah, absolutely. But you kind of run things over there now, don't you?
I do, yeah. Because like Liam, he does his he went off and did other stuff.
Yes,
and so like it's me essentially, and then my friend Alex, and then Andrew as well helps out a little bit occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like it's sort of the 3 of us as it were. And I just basically make any videos I want to make. Because I have a full-time job, so this is just a hobby.
Yeah, absolutely. And I the type of stuff you make is the type of stuff I like watching, which is like, nice. Hey, here's top 5 videos. You do a current conversation, which is basically like a podcast, but as a video. It's like little kind of more bite-sized chunks of conversation, which are really good of specific topics and stuff like that. So they're really good. Like, here's my lunch. Let me pair it with one of these types of videos. So very
thanks.
Stuff.
It all sort of stemmed from I want to make like a sort of a shorter podcast, but have like actual footage.
Yes.
Like originally, I was just going to do I just do some random footage in the background, which I think the first one was a lot less edited, but the more and more I've made over the years, the more sort of like picky I am with exactly what I want to show.
And let me tell you, I appreciate your editing, honestly, because I look at that stuff and I'm like, you're getting specific footage for the specific thing you're talking about, and I know most people don't understand how hard and long
it takes such a long time.
Yeah,
they really do.
But I really do appreciate that.
And I bet a lot of people probably just watch that stuff in the background or something, or they're not even watching the video anymore.
Yeah. It's like they put it on another tab and they just go away, and I'm just like, oh, man.
We went through a phase of sort of chopping up our podcast a bit and sticking them on YouTube.
We did,
and even getting some fairly bland footage by myself took just forever. It was, so good effort.
Yeah, appreciate your video editors out there, people. They do good work and they do hard work, so... very, very important. But yeah, people can find that. Where can they go to find the channel?
Yeah, just YouTube, I guess youtube.com/Project Falcon Punch is the channel.
Yeah.
Just search in the search bar.
I guess channel names are not really a thing anymore. My channel name is like Emperor ZNB, and you don't have to type that in anymore. You can just type Nbz into YouTube and find me. But it's kind of weird. But you do a podcast with Liam as well, don't you?
Yes, it's called Off the Record. It's on his Patreon, so I hate sort of being the person of like a sort of plug in the podcast I'm on because people go, "Oh, you do a podcast?"
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Well, can I listen to it? Like, well, it's on my friend's Patreon.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Great. But yeah, people can check that out as well if they want to. And yeah, we've got a lot to talk about on today's show. Bally, we've got something at the start though before we get into it, which is the results of our Backlog Club discussion, which will happen soon, I think, at some point. But we have to announce the winner, Bally. And in an unprecedented move, it's all tied up at the top, correct?
It is all tied up. This is our most popular Backlog Club vote ever. So this is our 9th Backlog Club that we've done, and it was between Paper Mario on the N64, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga on the GBA, and then Super Mario RPG on the Super Nintendo. And yeah, we got 24 votes, which is the most popular by quite some way, I want to say, out of all of our Backlog Club votes. And it is tied up, as you say, 11 votes apiece for Paper Mario on the N64 and Super Mario RPG. Mario and Luigi only got 2 votes, unfortunately. But I think we've decided, Nbz, we're going to play both of these games because, ultimately they are both winners. And I think we're going to start with Paper Mario on the N64 first because it is the longer of the games. We're kind of got like this, a bit of a brief window right now where there's not a ton of releases. So we're going to go for that one first. And yeah, as you say, we're going to talk about that game in, let's say, between 4 and 6 weeks, so 2 and 3 episodes away. We're not sure yet when.
Yes,
exactly,
we'll nail that down a bit more. But yeah, we'll do Mario RPG probably later this year at some point.
Yes.
But we thought, hey, we could just split the tie and decide ourselves which one we were going to do. But I think we both do want to play both at some point. So it made sense. So Paper Mario is our next Backlog Club. So we'll obviously have that thread in our Discord, and you can be chatting there. But also you can email us your thoughts and all that good
available
stuff.
on the Wii U eShop.
Yes.
Yeah. And thanks everyone for voting. Hugely appreciated.
Yes. I think just Mario plus RPG. I think
that's a good format. Yeah,
it gets people excited. Lots of people are fans of those old. Have you played either of those, Dan? The Mario RPG games?
I am a massive Paper Mario fan.
Nice.
I've played all of the games. I've the only one I've not beaten is Sticker Star.
Fair enough.
I just got bored. Like I'm not. I won't sit here and like rant on that game too much or anything because like it's been said 1,000 times before. But the worst thing I could say about that game is I just got bored and never finished it.
So Paper Mario Sticker Star was the first one I owned because I'd heard a lot about the series, and on 3DS I was like branching out, and I was like, oh yeah, let's get this new Paper Mario, and boy, that's it's a bummer of a game.
But the original Paper Mario I never owned until the Wii Virtual Console because
nice, okay.
Like 1,000 Year Door was my gateway into the series, so. And it naturally is my favourite as well because that game is phenomenal. It's one of my favourite GameCube games. I love 1,000 Year Door.
Absolutely.
But but the problem with the first Paper Mario is because like 1,000 Year Door builds so much on the original, like it's hard to kind of almost go back because it lacks certain mechanics.
Right.
That 1,000 Year Door sort of. I know I probably shouldn't go on this too much now because you're going to talk about this on your.
Don't worry, we're going to do like 3 hours on this, so don't worry.
Fair enough.
Great. Well, that is going to happen, and we'll look forward to that when we decide to chat about it. Bally, what else are we going to be talking about today? What's the show looking like?
This show is going to be 2 segments. For the first segment, we're going to be talking about the games that we have all been playing, and then for the second segment, we're going to have a little discussion about reboots, remakes, and remasters, and that fits in nicely to some announcements made in the most recent Pokemon Direct. So we're going to put that all together and have a chat about it.
Yeah, I did. I mentioned that to you, Dan, about like, well, I think probably there's some Pokemon things being announced this week, and it just fitted perfectly into what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, it really did. It worked out very well.
It did. Fantastic. Well, let's kick off with the video games we've been playing. Dan, I've heard that you were into Bowser's Fury. You got that 3D World re-release, even though you did play it on Wii U, presumably. Yes. Yes,
I played that game originally back in 2013 and thought it was great. And then had no intentions of playing this game again as a full retail release again. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, oh, there's an extra mode called Bowser's Fury, and I'm thinking it does look pretty cool, but I don't want to play the full game again.
Yes.
And other friends were saying, well, because of lockdown and everything, you can't play the multiplayer. And that game is pretty good in multiplayer, and now they've got online on it. So I buckled. I gave Nintendo my money. I'm one of those people, unfortunately.
They get us, we'll all succumb to it in the end. I will probably buy Skyward Sword again. It's just going to happen.
I'm saying this now that I won't, but I said exactly the same thing 6 months ago about 3D World.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, yeah. But yeah, 3D World is, they've improved it so much more, I think, compared to the original, just in terms of like adding different moves to Mario now. Like you can do like the dive and roll.
Oh, really? Can you?
Yeah, it's not quite as good as Odyssey, and I'll admit that like getting onto Bowser's Fury, when you have the full 3D camera, there are definitely moments where almost like I played so much of Odyssey, and it's like like instantly in my brain where I want to dive and throw the hat. I'm like, oh yeah, I can't do that. It's not this game.
Right. Like, does it feel weird because it's basically taking the 3D World moveset and putting it in a game that feels more like 64 or Odyssey?
Yes, it definitely does. I can't say off the top of my head if it's still 8-directional movement like 3D World, but that's my biggest gripe with that game is the 3D, well, that and the fixed camera. I love 3D Land on the 3DS because of the stereoscopic 3D made that fixed camera, like you never missed a jump because you knew exactly where you were landing. And in the open, any other 3D Mario game, whether it be Sunshine, 64, Galaxy, Odyssey, I can time my jumps pretty well because I can move the camera wherever I want most of the time.
Yeah.
Whereas in 3D World, I find myself often missing jumps, and I go to jump on an enemy and I land behind them, and then the enemy just touches me and I lose my power up. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. I remember those piranha plant things that come out the wall on their really long kind of necks that have spikes on them. Those, and like timing the jumps, you have to do like multiple in a row sometimes. I know exactly what you're talking about, and it was for me a bummer coming off of 3D Land, which I personally love and rank as one of my favorite 3D Marios. That idea doesn't quite translate, but also I think 3D World is just built around multiplayer so much that it feels just probably worse overall as a single-player experience.
It does. It definitely feels more bland in that way compared to other Mario games, and even Bowser's Fury. I love Bowser's Fury a lot. But with 3D World is great in multiplayer, but it's the same thing I've said before about with New Super Mario Brothers as well. Whereas I think that those games are brilliant in 2-player co-op, but if you're playing it in 4-player, it's just utter chaos. There's so much shit on screen.
Yeah,
it's really hard to keep track of what's going on. And then on the flip side, when you're playing it on single player, it's just kind of like it's just not as fun. I do think that both those games work well as 2-player co-op games.
Yeah, definitely. And there's the bubbling as well in this game, right? Mm-hmm. Can you do that whenever you want? You can just like choose to bubble and just float along behind people.
Yes, you can. But it works slightly differently to New Super Mario Brothers, where you can pop the bubble whenever you want as well.
Oh, nice. So you don't rely on someone else popping it for you?
No, but you can't like spam it, so you can't like just constantly keep bubbling. Like there isn't like a timer that you see on the screen, but I don't think you can keep pressing it. I think that once you press it, like you can't press it again for a bit.
Okay.
So yeah.
Have you played this online with people? Then how's the online holding up?
Yeah, so I have played it online. I played it with Liam Robertson, actually, and we, for the first hour, were thinking this is great. 2-player co-op, we were having no problems, and all of a sudden, I don't think it's either our internets, because our internets were fine. We just started getting lag quite bad. And it's not like lag where it's like occasionally a little drop here. Like the game would just almost like the button inputs were just completely delayed. It was like unplayable.
So, is it anything like Mario Maker 2's slideshow, or does it not get to that level? Because I remember trying that, and that was a living nightmare. So
yes, it can do. It's nowhere near as bad as Mario Maker, but I have played it with another friend as well. And their internet isn't great, and they said that beforehand. So going into it, and it was unplayable. It was like Mario Maker. So then we were like, okay, maybe it's just their internet is really that bad. So we played Mario Kart 8, and it was fine.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, I wonder.
I don't know why this game is really demanding for people's internet.
I wonder if it's because of the real-time nature of like where people have to be exactly versus I feel like they can just make it fake a little bit in Mario Kart, you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, because sometimes if you you'll go into an item on the back of someone online on Mario Kart 8 and you'll think, I didn't get hit by that item, like I saw that going at a different angle or something.
Yeah.
So the online, I wouldn't rely on it. If that's what you want to get the game for, don't do that unless you have like pristine, like perfect internet. You all have perfect internet, because it definitely has problems with it.
Right. I think like wired connection is what they've said, as well as like you should try and use that.
Have they actually said that?
I think so. I think Nintendo said that. I know that when in the review environment, I was listening to Neil Ronahan's review, Nintendo World Report, and he was talking about how all the multiplayer sessions with Nintendo PR was wired connections from everybody, and he said it worked really well in that environment. But of course, that's a wired environment for everybody, so it's not the best.
It's your daily reminder that Nintendo get away with murder in this industry.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, of course. Yes.
Yeah, really. Yeah. And you have to buy an adapter anyway to play.
You do, Switch, yes, so. Yeah. Which is,
but so like Bowser's Fury is, I think, it is such a cool idea. Like it's a very small sort of condensed idea, but it's such a cool idea. It's an open world Mario game, which they haven't done because all right, other games like Sunshine are more open, but they're segmented in different levels. This is every time you unlock a new area, you can go over to it and you jump onto Plessy from 3D World. Like the way they reuse assets from 3D World, but in a cool way, I really like. Like, see Plessy, you can just ride around in the water and go to different islands, and it's really, really, really bloody good. Don't play it in handheld mode though, because it has like frame issues.
Right, I think it drops to 30 in handheld versus 60 when you're docked. Right.
Exactly, and I have not noticed too many big frame drops in docked mode, but in handheld mode. At 30, just playing it in 30 after getting used to the... Because the main 3D world is still in 60 in docked.
Yes, yeah.
So, like, if you're playing... Like, I was playing it in handheld mode. Sorry, 3D world is...
3D world is 60 still in handheld, right?
Yes, that's what I meant, yes. Yeah. And I was playing 3D world in handheld, just in bed, and I just thought I'd swap over to Bowser's Fury. And, you know, I don't know if... some people aren't as sort of sensitive to frame rate stuff, but like going from seeing a screen right in front of me at 60, then all of a sudden going up to 30, I'm like, oof, no, I'm not going to play this game unless it's in docked, because
Nintendo are giving the game away with this game because now people can see the difference in such a stark example.
But I feel like a lot of people recently have just been coming to this realization because of the new consoles, right? Bally, you're one of those people.
Me, massively. I've just come off the back of Shadow of the Colossus in 60, the first time I'd been playing it, and now I'm currently playing, you know, like Spyro in not even the best 30, and it is just night and day, and it's hard to go back to third person action games in particular at 30.
It's why people, like, I totally understand why they can't go back to stuff on the N64 and PS1, because those, like, I love Ocarina of Time 64, GoldenEye, they're my favorite games of all time, but I totally understand if you want to go back to those games and it's like, okay, GoldenEye is running at like sub 20 and so is Ocarina of Time, and it's just like those games don't hold up, so that'd be good if you could play 64 and 60 frames someday as well.
Totally. Yeah, and I think the other thing is games like Spider-Man coming out and having, okay, here's the ray trace mode versus the 60 mode. Yeah. Literally at the press of a button, you can directly see the difference as well. So
it's cool. But so Bowser's Fury, I guess I'll just sort of wrap up with this, but I love the idea of having this like looming giant Bowser that's going to cause chaos at any moment.
Yes.
It's very like Majora's Mask-esque, where you have this looming destruction in the background that like you're thinking, oh, because it was really cool at first when you're doing like certain platforming, and it's just just going about your way, and then all of a sudden Bowser will appear and rain down fireballs and stuff. You're like, oh my god, like trying to weave in and out. But not to spoil the game, but once you finish it, you can go back and get more shines. And Bowser essentially can destroy certain blocks that Mario can't, so you have to have him to be summoned to to destroy blocks.
Oh, so is he still like coming back, I guess, in some senses? Or there's probably a way for you to still deal with those obstacles, right?
Yes, every time you get a cat shine, he disappears. So if you want to get rid of him, just go and get cat shine. But obviously, if you're doing post-game stuff and you're trying to get the last collectibles, that's not always going to be an easy thing for you just to go out and get just another shine, because I think it's 100 in total.
Right.
I think you need to get 50 to beat the game. But I guess a slight gripe is that he becomes a bit of an annoyance in post-game, because you're just trying to get...
I was going to say that, because it seems like he's triggered quite often, like he just every few minutes or so, and you might be in the middle of a mission and he just pops up, and I wonder how annoying that gets really, or is it just, is he gone and is like there for a brief amount of time enough that it's not too bad, or...
Yeah, he disappears after 5 minutes or so. I feel like the game almost understands like when you want him to destroy stuff and when you don't, because I feel like on a platforming stage and he appears, he's like, oh, I'll rain down on fireballs on you for a bit, and then I'll realise that you're in the middle of something, so I'll just leave you to it. and I'll just go away now.
Yeah.
But I do wish that there was like an item or something you could use to summon him and to get rid of him whenever you want post game, because you've beaten the game, and like I feel like that would be a cool idea. But I like also how you have the power ups you can essentially collect constantly. So
right, you have like an inventory of them that you can just, whenever you want, just pop them out and be like, oh, I want to be Cat Mario now, which I guess works in terms of certain puzzles. You might be like, oh, I need to get through this area, but I don't have this, so that makes sense to just have them at your beck and call whenever.
It's so convenient. It makes the game really easy, because oftentimes if like you got hit and you go down to small Mario or regular Mario, like you can sort of stock 5 of each power up.
Yeah.
So it does become a case of some of the later areas, or even the final boss when you're facing Bowser and he's raining loads of stuff on you, and you just I got hit. Okay, I just activate another power up that I've got in my inventory. But it also makes, whenever you go back to 3D World proper, and you can only store 1 power up, just one. That's it.
Yeah.
And then you get hit. You're like, oh, I haven't got that infinite, like loads and loads of power ups stored.
Are you getting sloppy then, going back to 3D World, being like, oh, I can just get through this?
Yes. But I'm blaming that on the fixed camera.
No, totally, yes. Yeah, exactly. It's all Nintendo's fault, absolutely. That makes sense. No, it sounds really, really good. Structurally, I'm interested. Does it, because I watched some of Giant Bomb play this, and it looked like you had a starting area, and there's a lot of goop around, and then you unlock another area. Like, how open really is it, or is it still gated in some ways?
No. Like, okay, so it's gated in, like, there's like multiple islands.
Yeah.
I think there's 4 in total that you unlock, 4 areas, because there's like little islands. It's not just like 4 big islands. There's like little islands as well. But there's like 4 areas, I think, that you unlock. And then every time you get to a certain amount of shines, you fight Bowser, you defeat Bowser, and then another area unlocks.
Okay.
So then once you've unlocked all those 4 areas, you can just go about anywhere you want as you please. And that's cool. So it's pretty open in that way, yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like you can get quite creative with some of those shines as well. Like I saw them try and get one that was kind of floating around over the water, and it looked like you had to get up onto these platforms to get it, but then they did like a jump on Plessy and then jumped off as Mario off of Plessy's back, and it got enough height to where they could get the shine midair, which is the kind of creativity in platforming that I liked a lot in Odyssey, of just like using your full moveset to get places. It seems like there's some of that here as well.
Yeah, and that openness in not just like the structure of the game, but also in the way that, like you say, you can sort of exploit with power-ups to get to places you probably shouldn't have done straight away, but like not in a game-breaking way where you're under the world or something. And that part of Mario games, like I say in Odyssey, I absolutely love. So seeing it here as well, implemented really well, I really love as well, compared to like 3D World, where it's very linear, not just in they get from point A to point B, but also just structurally, you can very rarely feel like you're breaking the game.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense. Cool. Well, I would love to play this at some point. Please, Nintendo, put it out as its own thing. I know they're never going to do that. It's just not.
They're never going to do. But I would totally agree. Like if they put this as like it's £20, I think it's worth £20.
Absolutely.
For Bowser's Fury.
Yeah. I'd buy it in a heartbeat for 20. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even for 30, I probably would.
Yeah.
It's at that level of.
There's just something about, what is it, 50 generally? I mean, some places will be cheaper.
You can get it. I think there are retailers in the UK who usually go for around 40 to 45-ish is kind of the current.
Why I got it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, for me, it was like I spent basically £45 on Bowser's Fury and then got 3D World as a bonus.
Yeah, no, you could think of it like that, totally. And as long as you are still enjoying going through 3D World, when it works, I guess, online, that's still a benefit.
I guess the final thing I'd say about 3D World, and then this also applies to Skyward Sword, 3D World is a great game, but it's my least favourite 3D Mario.
No, I totally agree with you. Yes, it's also my least favourite, but or maybe there's Mario Sunshine exists, so that's always going to be at the bottom for me.
I'm a huge fan of Mario Sunshine since we played it last year.
Boy.
He's just admitted 3D World is worse than Sunshine, so
that's true. Well, I do like Sunshine more than I let on before. However, it still squarely sits at the bottom of my ranking.
Speaking of Giant Bomb earlier, I loved that play that they the playthrough they did.
That was very
was it Still My Sunshine?
Steal My Sunshine was amazing. That was so much fun.
That part where Dan phases through one of the blocks, it's so funny.
It's just it's one of Nintendo's least polished games, and that says a lot because they are like immaculate when it comes to this stuff. Like looking at Bowser's Fury, and I'm like, this is just like the rain and all of that stuff. It just looks incredible and is just so on another level compared to other game developers. And then you look at Sunshine, and you're like, how did this get through? I guess, I mean, the GameCube, they were having a rough time, but boy, it definitely has a lot of issues.
They needed their Mario game at the end of 2002, didn't they?
Yes,
they did. Still
they
sort of in the launch window, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
for sure. Great. Well, maybe I'll play that one day. Who knows? I always keep saying I will buy Mario Kart 8 when it goes under 30 quid again if I'm going to do that, but that's never going to happen. So maybe this will. We'll see. Great. So, triangle strategy, 2 words that shouldn't go together, but somehow Square Enix magicked that into existence. Obviously, they announced this, the Nintendo Direct, and we had a bonus episode where we talked about all that stuff. Bally, you and I have both put significant time into this demo. You played one of the paths, correct?
I did. It's still a really long demo, even playing 2 missions. I know you played 3, but there's a lot in there.
Yeah, so I made a save after the first mission, which meant I went back and I always do this. This is the thing that happens when you grow up and all your memory cards die on you, is you just get this built-in tolerance of I must have as many saves as possible. So that's kind of, even on a demo, that's how it works for me. So it was easy for me. This morning I went in and played through the other map that you did, Bally.
Yeah.
But do you want to set this up, Bally,
Sure.
and what this is and how it works and everything?
Yeah, so obviously it's the team behind Octopath Traveler, but instead of kind of your standard, more traditional JRPG, they've moved into the kind of turn-based grid tactics that's a bit more akin to Fire Emblem or Final Fantasy Tactics. And yeah, in this demo, you're dropped straight into Chapter 6, and they even announced, like at the start of the demo, we've turned up the difficulty because we thought that's the best way of showing off the game, which is like this strange Square logic.
I don't understand why Square Enix do this. They did it with the Bravely Default 2 demo as well, and I think that made that demo way worse, and I disliked it greatly as a result. Weirdly, I think because I like hard strategy games, it kind of worked for me here, but it's different for different people, right?
Yeah, and I was definitely someone who, I've said this before, a little bit burned by Fire Emblem, but because I loved Octopath Traveler so much, I'm prepared to give this a go, and obviously I wanted to try this demo. I was very impressed by like the first mission, and I managed to get through it like first time, and I was thinking, right, I seem to be understanding these mechanics. And then I just got completely done in by the second mission. It took me a good number of times. And I spoke to you about it, Nbz, and you said like, oh yeah, I got this other character and I got this person and they did this. And I'm like, I didn't get any extra characters. I don't know what I was doing, but I'm
really confused by that because there's a character, Medina, she throws items basically, and she can like do double items in a turn, which is quite clever. And you get her before the second mission if you just go to one of the green question marks on the map.
I went to every single green question mark on the overworld map and just had little tiny cutscenes that didn't ever lead to any new characters. So I really don't know what I did wrong, or maybe like once you have them in your party, do you have to do something to make sure they're in your party?
Did you ever go to the encampment?
I did, but I don't think I explored it enough. Is that how you equip them into your party, as it were?
I don't think so, no. It's actually kind of confusing to add them to your... So here's the thing. Maybe you did get the cutscene with her, but you just didn't realize she was a team member or something, and you just never added her.
That sounds most likely. So how do I get her in my party?
Basically, when you're on the map about to start a battle, when you're choosing the placement of your units, if you press X, it brings up a menu of, now you can put this person in, take this person out. Right. It's a little bit tricky because I was trying to do that this morning again. I was
maybe that's a large reason why I found the second map way harder than the first.
Because there is a bonus character you get for that second map called Izana, I believe, and she has the ability to change the weather, so she can just make it rain and all the fire goes away. She also has
so useful.
She has a lightning spell, which has a pretty decent range to it as well. So,
right. And that's what I think I love about this versus Fire Emblem, where I feel like Fire Emblem, yes, you have magic uses, yes, there are certain spells, but by and large, the most important thing in Fire Emblem is essentially each unit's attack and defense. And I felt like each character in this felt a lot more like almost an actual RPG character or like a D&D character. Like they had all these different things they could do, and that's whether they're even a magic user or not. And I loved that variety. Like there's a lot more to learn and get your head around, especially once you start throwing in what position they face at the end of their turn, which is important to avoid critical damage. I loved all that stuff. So yeah, I loved getting my head around all this, and yeah, I felt a little bit beaten up by the game by the end, but totally when the actual game comes out, I feel like if I learn all the characters one by one and make sure that all the characters that I join my party I actually equip into my party, then I think I'll be much better. So like I don't think I have any qualms in that sense. And the story was fairly by the numbers for the most part, but I loved that there was a choice and different arcs, and there was like a conclusion to each of those arcs even within the demo, which I thought was quite impressive. So I was very in on the world. It felt darker in a way, more so than maybe Octopath, and almost like a bit of a Game of Thrones kind of way. Whereas I feel like Fire Emblem, yes, there are dark tones often, but I felt like there was some proper just kind of, all right, that person's dead now kind of thing, a lot more so with this.
Yeah, even though they're sprites, there's moments where a corpse gets killed and it just falls to the floor and the blood, like pixel blood, seeps out of it, and it's like ridiculously gory for a pixel art game. It's kind of crazy.
I'm incredibly impressed all around. I know there's been a lot of chatter about the voice acting and certain characters being worse than others. This is my take on voice acting in medieval fantasy games and this is my anti-American bias coming in here, but I'm just like, I cannot handle American accents in medieval fantasy settings. I don't know if it's growing up with Lord of the Rings and stuff like Game of Thrones reinforces this, but for me, it just massively takes me out of it. The second you move away from like European accents, I just find like, why would these people have American accents? Like, this is just bizarre. So in that sense, the voice acting was much of a muchness, and that was one of my issues with Octopath Traveler, honestly, at the time. I think the voice acting was quite good in that game, but again, there was just a lot of American characters, and I'm not a fan. I can't get behind it.
I know what you mean, actually, with that sort of, even that makes no sense because it's a made-up fantasy world, so like they can do what the hell they want with when it comes to voice acting. But I know where you're coming from. It does sound weird with American accents in this sort of setting.
Yeah, and I want to be, and I don't want to be this to be like a pro-British thing, because I do think the Game of Thrones does well in that it's got a lot of suggestive like Mediterranean and potentially like Middle Eastern accents. Like this is purely like an American thing. It just feels very out of whack with more European-based accents. Totally. That's just a personal gripe.
Yeah, I think the main character is the worst, Serenoa. He's one of the flattest performances I've ever heard, I think, in a game. It's kind of weird because there are some good ones around him, like Frederica, who's the princess, who's, I believe, Roland's sister, right? But she is married. See, this is the thing, is like there are so many characters and the relations between them and the kingdoms, like 3 kingdoms. And
what's the name of the main evil guy again? He's got
Gustadolf.
It's like Gustav and Rudolph put together. It's just the most hilarious name. I couldn't take that character seriously, even though he's meant to be like this big bad guy. And it's like, yeah, sure you are.
Totally, yeah. There's a bit of a mustache twirling thing going on there to some degree, but I do appreciate that it's leaning into that kind of medieval fantasy and not doing too much bold with it. It feels kind of tropey, but in a way that's comfortable. You know, I like that type of stuff. And
it's comfortable. It's very Octopath in that, I think, as well. Like it's not going beyond. I mean, what if they eventually link the 2 worlds, for example? That wouldn't be out of the question.
No, for sure. That would totally be logical. But how do you feel about the choice and consequences system, right? Because this is the scales of conviction, I believe they're called, that they showed in the trailer. And I
can't remember the 3 things, but they make no sense at all.
Morality, utility, something, who knows?
Oh, yes. I'm a big believer in morality versus utility, because they go against each other. So I don't know.
It's weird, right? Because so Octopath, you were exploring an overworld and your characters move from town to town and that type of thing. With this game, you have an overworld map that you look at as your kind of hub area, and you go to different question marks. Some of them are green, which mark them as kind of side conversations. So like sometimes you'll go over to the Sand Kingdom of Hyzant, which is like a religious kingdom, it seems like, and you'll get a little cutscene there, and then you'll get a different cutscene from a different lord. But then when you go with the main story, you have sections where you do get to run around these spaces a little bit, and it's generally the maps that you're going to fight on are the spaces you get to run around, but you get to talk to some villagers, find out information, and then you go and use that information to persuade your army to one choice versus another, right?
Yeah, I think it's great, actually. I mean, maybe my one gripe with it is it just takes so long. Like, I swear it was about 45 minutes between battles. So, like, if you're
part
here
of
for
that is like loading between cutscenes, which is, you know,
my God, like,
time.
If you're here for some battles and don't care about story or character interactions, and I'm sure there's plenty of people who maybe don't care as much about those things and they're just here for some strategy, I'm not really sure if this is the game for you, honestly, because I think there's just so much stuff in between.
You're right. Like, I sat down at, I think, 10:15 this morning, and it was by 11 o'clock that I started the battle part of it.
Exactly. And I loved the plot stuff that happened, especially with the line you played this morning, the one I ended up doing. I mean, I've not seen the other one, but the one I did felt cool. Like,
I'm really interested, like, why you went down that route, because to me, the game was showing me, okay, the choice is, like, the mechanic seems like you should try and persuade people to your side, and the game starts off with 4 of these people having the decision that you went with, which means it's kind of in your favor. I was more like, oh, I need to get them over to my side, so I need to persuade a lot more people so that we do the alternate route, which is to save the prince and make sure he stays with us. So I'm curious as to why you went that route versus the other.
The reason I went the route I did was I felt it was very predictable to be like, no, we will stand our ground and we will fight for the prince. And I was like, I wonder what will happen if you actually try and avoid any fighting and give up the prince. And I'll just say that it didn't end well at all. And it was a really bad decision. But I wanted that interest in I was more interested in the overall plot than I was in the mechanic in the moment. But I agree with you. Like, it could have been more interesting to try and actually convince everyone, because I just kind of I managed to persuade all but one person actually in the end to my side, and those
because you basically don't need to interact with the people who are already decided, right? So I just didn't talk to those 4 characters who had already made up their mind about what they were going to do.
No, and that's exactly what I did. I didn't talk to them I didn't talk to the character who I didn't need to change their mind. And I like it is weird. Like, you do walk around the town, you gain a bit more information, so you basically find out that they don't have plans to kill the prince, is what is rumored in the town. And there's like another rumor that I can't remember the other rumor now, but
I don't remember.
There's a couple of bits of information that can help you go one way or the other and be like, oh, maybe that would lead to this. And I think they purposefully pull the rug from underneath you plot wise to make it that no matter which way you go, crazy shit is going to go down, basically. But and that's fine. But I thought it's cool. I don't think there's much skill or that in kind of working out how to persuade them. You're kind of just selecting menus, but because for a bit
if you have an option that you found in the town, a little lock will just unlock itself and be like, oh, well, this probably should be the choice I choose because I've just unlocked it and I wouldn't have had access to it otherwise, right? So it makes it, I don't know, maybe a bit obvious that that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, I just felt like it's a neat mechanic. I enjoy talking to these people. I enjoy seeing how it plays out, but I don't feel like I'm actually deducting anything here. I'm just letting events play out, and that's interesting. And
the thing I'm most curious about is how branching does this get, because it is pretty significant. The changes and all the conversations, the side conversations are different. All the like green question marks are totally different if you choose one option over the other. So I wonder how branching they can really make it.
I mean, is this secretly Octopath Traveler? They just want you to play the game 8 times and you can have different paths. I don't know. I am convinced that you will be able to play this game in at least, I'll say, 8 different ways, and obviously that fits in with Oct. So I'm convinced there's going to be a lot.
I don't know. They've got 3. 3 seems to be a theme here, right? Triangle strategy. There are 3 kingdoms. You know, like it seems like that's maybe.
I will say what I love about the cutscenes versus the traditional JRPG, just going from town to town, engaging in cutscenes, etc., is I love that they do these cuts to characters that are like in a faraway land, talking about stuff that's going on in your land, and. That does feel very actually Game of Thrones in many ways, where
it totally does. Yeah,
there's a lot of characters that are shades of grey, and that's really cool in something like this, where I feel like almost everyone in Octopath Traveler was overtly good or bad. And I'm not going to say that they're not overtly good or bad in this, because essentially one character who I thought was overtly good essentially became overtly bad, and I wouldn't describe that they ended up being a shade of grey, arguably. I think they just ended up being a bit of a secret lunatic, and that was cool in the way that played out. But I do like the intrigue of all these characters across the land and how they all interact.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes down to the tactic stuff, this morning, because I really enjoyed it and I had a great time, and I think that first battle that I did, which was the different one, I struggled quite a lot with that. I lost a bunch of characters and I was really by the end scrapping to get through. I think now that I understand the mechanics a lot more and know what each character can do, this second time when I was going for the map that you did, Bally, I did it first time and I only lost one character, and it felt so satisfying and really tense, and it was just moments of, okay, I really understand that I need to use stuff like the blinding arrows. So Huette, who she flies on like a giant owl or like an eagle or something. So she's your flying unit. She can use an arrow that blinds enemies. So I went over to the left side of the map, blinded all the mages. I took my spy and I got her like all the way to the top, and some enemy ran into her, and so all the enemies came over to where she was. So she hid round by the other side and like hid and stealthed away. And so like I kited enemies into different directions, was able to get everyone like slowly moving up the map, and it was crazy at the end with the final boss, because I had a character who could push, you can shove people basically, a move that like rams them away from you, and he was on the edge of a platform, and so I smashed him down off the platform and he landed off it into fire as well. So he took like additional damage from landing on fire. He got knocked off, and then the other character, the main one, Serenoa, has an attack called Hawk Dive, where he does more damage if he has higher elevation. So he came in after that and did like Hawk Dive on top of him. So it's just like all these systems kind of coalescing together. There's a little bit of, I'm going to say like Breath of the Wild-y stuff in there in terms of elements working together. So like if you have a character who is in the rain and you use lightning, they'll do more damage, or stuff like that, essentially, where it all kind of interlinks. And it's great.
I also really like that big area of effect magic attacks don't hurt your own characters.
Yes.
Do they?
Oh my goodness. That's so good.
That is such a nice feeling, because I think, is there something in Fire Emblem that does that? I can't remember.
No, I know Final Fantasy Tactics definitely has that issue. But it feels really modern, right? And I played some Final Fantasy Tactics last year, or maybe it was 2019. I totally bounced off of it because it just felt really grindy and punishingly difficult in a way that didn't feel enjoyable. But this feels like it takes all those ideas and like adds a few wrinkles. The idea of one character standing in front of an enemy and then one behind. If they like a pincer movement, they can attack, and then the other character will do a follow-up counter attack if they are like in the right position, basically. And so positioning really matters, and all that stuff. And it is, I am absolutely in love with what they have shown here. Granted, I said that about the Octopath Traveler demo, and that didn't pan out for me. So I'm still going in with some skepticism. But if it keeps up this level of quality, this is absolutely one of my most anticipated games going forward.
I agree. I kind of want to replay the demo with the standard number of characters, because I seem to have gone in underbaked into the. Well,
you have the right number of characters. The only ones they add are like additional ones. So one of the guys
so someone does have to be dropped.
You have to drop somebody from your roster in order to add someone in. So I dropped someone to add in the kind of weather mage lady.
Right.
And there's also another guy who he gives you TP. So that system is in this game as well from Octopath, where it's like Bravely Default, basically, where you can spend a turn just doing a regular attack and you build up this kind of currency, and then you can spend that on more powerful attacks. So your mages especially really need to build those up in order to do their spells and stuff.
I really, really love that they've implemented both like the TP system with essentially like action points, I guess. But I also love that yes, this is turn-based strategy, but it's not 2 turns. It's everyone takes a turn based on their speed, just like Octopath Traveler, which I think is really nice, because you're never waiting for the enemy.
Yeah, like Benedict is one of those characters where he has a spell called Now, which really helped, where I was like, this character's in a bad position, I'm going to use Now on them, which brings them immediately to the turn after you. Even if they've only just gone, they'll come all the way back into the timeline. And so you can see the sequence of when the enemies are going to go, when you're going to go on the bottom of the screen. And like there are attacks like Delayed Strike, where you hit them and you knock them back in the order. So that stuff is also really clever. It's just lots lots of layers. It is quite complicated, and I think that first map of getting your head around it definitely takes a bit of time. But by the time I had it, I was like, oh, I'm so into this. It's so good.
Yeah. I look forward to be able to playing chapters 1 through 5 and progressively getting better. Like, I love a tutorial.
Yes.
And this demo does quite drop you in the deep end.
Yeah, a little bit in the deep end, a little bit.
But it's solid.
Fantastic.
And one of the most anticipated games of 2022 now, which is weird to say. But
yeah, totally. I know you're interested in checking this demo out, Dan. Have you had much experience with strategy games before or turn-based stuff like this?
So kind of not really, actually. I mean, Advance Wars, I guess, if that counts, it does really count. Of course it does. Advance Wars was like my jam on GBA. That was one of my favourite GBA games. And then I played, Wargroove a couple of years ago. Loved Wargroove.
Bally loves
so like
Wargroove.
I'm definitely into I love strategy games. I've not played that many of them. I've never really played Final Fantasy Tactics. I've only dabbled with a couple of Fire Emblem games, but I've never really got. I mean, about 10, 15 hours into Awakening, but I never finished it. I honestly I've unfortunately not got around to playing the demo yet. I've got it installed on my Switch. I've just not played it yet. I really want to. I played the demo of Octopath Traveler. I really liked that, but I just never got around to buying that game either. But this looks more appealing to me, at least what you're talking about as well. Even from a gameplay sort of point of view, more appealing to me than Octopath Traveler just being a traditional JRPG turn-based game. So,
It definitely feels in between. It's obviously way closer to Fire Emblem, but I do think it is in between Fire Emblem and Advance Wars. Like, it doesn't feel like... With Fire Emblem, I find you can often have a very powerful unit, and they often, you just put them up front, and they will sponge all the damage, and I feel like, yes, you can do that to a degree with this game, but at the same time, the enemy can just run around the back of that character and do some hefty damage with critical hits. So, I do feel like this game emphasizes strategic placement more so than the RPG nature of let's just have really powerful characters and go and blitz through the map kind of feel.
Sounds cool,
to it.
sure.
And I like that a lot.
Yeah, and Bally is much more of an Advance Wars Wargroove person, so I think there's potential that you'll really enjoy this in that case.
Nice. I'm looking forward to playing it, actually.
Great. Cool. So the other things that I've been playing, so one of them, Dan, I know you're a big Rare fan, right? Like, you have have you finished it yet? Your ongoing ranking of every Rare game?
No, the video series that I started 5 years ago, more than 5 years ago. I'm still not done part 3 yet, but I'm a big Rare fan. So I was doing the whole thing of ranking all Rare Replay games, and I did part 1, doing 30 through 21, and then I did 20 through 11. And every time I've done another video, it's been bigger, and the script has been bigger. And I do the Game of the Year stuff, and that takes a lot of my time as well.
Yes, yeah.
And I've written the script. I know this is not completely relevant to what we're going to be talking about, but I've written the scripts for all that. I just need to actually make the video.
Cool.
But yeah, I loved Star Fox Adventures growing up as a kid, but I always wanted to see what Dinosaur Planet actually was.
Yes.
I can't believe that has finally happened.
It's crazy, dude. So we're talking about Dinosaur Planet, which, if you don't know, when Rare was making their final game, I guess, for Nintendo before they got bought by Microsoft, they were making this new game on N64, and they were like, oh, let's make a Dinosaur Planet game where you're a fox or whatever, or you're, I guess... I don't know what the creature is defined as. They kind of look like a cat to some degree. Like, Crystal looks like a cat in this game. And they had pretty deep in development on this project. And then Nintendo were like, hey, but what if you put Star Fox in it? And they were like, I guess we'll put Star Fox in it. And then it got delayed and turned into a GameCube game and became Star Fox Adventures, which is it a launch title for GameCube? It came out around the time of launch, right?
It was September 2002, if I recall.
Okay, yeah. Oh, so yeah, a bit later then, because I think of it as a launch game because I got my GameCube for Christmas of 2002, whereas Bally, you got yours around launch in 2002.
After Super Smash Bros. Melee, but before Sunshine. It was near launch. Yeah.
It was that first holiday season when it had come out.
Yeah, because we didn't get the GameCube till May 2002 anyway.
Yes.
Over here, did we?
Yeah. God, back in those days when we had to wait so long for consoles.
Oh yeah.
Glad that's over. But yeah, so you played through all of Star Fox Adventures, right?
Many times.
Wow, damn. So I owned Star Fox Adventures. I obviously played a bunch of it. Talking about memory cards earlier is funny because this is one of those games where my third-party memory cards often just died on me with Star Fox Adventures. And I lost my save progress a bunch of times on it. And as a result, I never got that deep into it. I think it was also, I wasn't really a fan of Zelda at the time when I got Star Fox Adventures. To some degree, it was my first Zelda game almost. And so I wasn't really familiar with it. And I didn't get into single player story driven stuff like that very much when I was younger. Neither of us did really. We both grew up playing more Mario Party and things like that.
Just quickly say about the third party memory cards. There's a cheat that I figured out as a kid. I had third party memory cards that would corrupt as well. But if they corrupt and they say they can't read it, quickly exit and everything. Go to the main GameCube menu. Get a third party one and get a first party one. Transfer the third party save data over to the first party if you've got space. And it works.
Damn.
And you can save it.
See, that would have been great. I didn't even own any first-party memory cards. So that was the problem. I
seem to have similar issues where my third-party ones would do something, but I would just I'd pause everything, take it out, blow in it, put it back, and all of a sudden it worked. I never seemed to lose memory, but Nbz was just unbelievably unlucky.
Yes, yeah. It was mainly with Sega games, actually. It was Super Monkey Ball and Sonic Adventure 2 Battle were the ones that really, for whatever reason, would mess up so badly. But yeah, Star Fox Adventures was a casualty at some point in time. But it was a cool game, and I really liked what it was doing, and it seemed very neat. I just never got that deep into it. It's one of those I keep wanting to revisit, you know? It's like, I need to go back to that, and in some ways, we're going to be talking about remakes. Like, that is a game that could be pretty cool to see as, you know, re-released on Switch in HD and things like that.
Yeah.
But Dinosaur Planet, this is the game on N64, and it got leaked. It just was out there. I feel like, is this part of the gig leak? I'm not sure what this is part of, or if it's just someone found a disc. Do you know much more about it, Dan?
All I know is that no one knows where it actually came from, but it's not part of the Giga Leak.
Okay. So it's just like somebody had this, they put it on the internet.
Yes.
And it's wild, dude. So the opening of Star Fox Adventures is this sequence where you're flying on a dinosaur as Crystal, and you're attacking this ship, and it's like raining, and you're like trying to take out cannons and stuff, and you land on the ship.
It's in the final game.
Yes, and so like that is exactly how this opens. It's the exact same opening of you are on the back of the dinosaur, you're flying, you're shooting the ship, you land on it, General Scales is there, and then you go to that weird island place where in the actual game on GameCube, you do a bunch of puzzles with a barrel, putting it on switches, like going through this whole kind of... It's basically a temple in some sense. It's like a Zelda temple.
Yeah, with those like really weird floating jellyfish creatures.
Yes, yeah, exactly, which always creeped me out when I was younger. It was one of those things where I was like kind of scared of it, to be honest, until I got through it, and I was like, okay. And you get to the end, and then Crystal gets turned into Crystal, or she gets frozen in Crystal.
Did you get it?
That was really weird. And then you just suddenly switch to Fox, and he's fighting in the R-Wing. The difference here is that the temple is a lot shorter, doesn't have as many mechanics going on with it, and like one or two puzzles, but then you go back to the surface, and you enter this area where it suddenly just warps you to the planet. So Crystal just gets warped to the planet. And you remember the giant mountain guy, like the rock guy at the start of the game?
The Warpstone, yeah.
Yes, him. So he's there, and he's like, hello, I'm this guy. If you want to change characters, come to me, and I'll swap you over.
Does he still have his Scottish accent?
He does, yes, and shockingly, the voice acting is kind of similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Feels like Fox's and Tricky's in particular are the same as the original game.
Yeah, because they changed Crystals, I think.
Yes, Crystal is definitely different.
Because originally the voice actress was Evelyn Novakovic, which is the voice of Joanna Dark from the original.
Oh, damn!
Dark.
Wow, that's
same
cool.
voice actress, and then I guess they wanted to put an American in. I don't know if that was Nintendo's doing or
who knows? But yeah, that definitely, it feels quite jarring. It definitely feels like an unfinished part of the game. It just feels like, oh, there's no context here. You just kind of get warped to this place, and suddenly you're on the planet. Yeah. And he says, oh, and now you can switch to play as Sable. But then it switches over the character, and it is Fox McCloud. It is like an N64 model of Fox, and he is called Fox, and in the cutscenes he says his name is Fox and all that stuff, but for whatever reason, like the name Sable is still in there, and the character icon in the top corner is still the character icon of the old character. It's not changed over to Fox or anything.
No, and this is my theory. is that the whole idea was that Nintendo wanted, we want to put Fox in, and so they probably asked Rare, can you like do a mock-up and like make it? And obviously this isn't completely done, so there was loads of leftover stuff from Saber before it went over to Fox. So like you say, like the icon and stuff and certain text parts still say Saber instead. So this is, I think, like a test bed, because also the character model for Fox is a bit odd.
It is,
where like the eyelids don't blink like crystals do. So like I feel like it's a proof of concept model they've just sort of shoehorned into this game to show Nintendo to say like, hey, this is what you want. Is this what you want? And then Nintendo like, yeah, okay, let's put it on GameCube now.
Yeah, so. Totally. I actually really like the model of Fox. Like seeing N64 Fox fully rendered like that looks pretty cool, man. Like And this game feels very impressive for an N64 game. Like, it feels like it would have been late era, one of the most impressive looking games on the system, and really pushing the boundaries. And it's crazy how much it feels like Ocarina of Time, especially in the combat, because you start out and you're locking on to an enemy, and the dodging, the strafing around enemies, the using your weapon just feels straight ripped out of Ocarina of Time. And it's like, wow, man, they had a house style, it felt like, in that era of like what games should feel like, in a sense.
This was sort of developed the tail end. I think a lot of the team from Diddy Kong Racing, which was 97, so it was a year before Ocarina of Time came out. They probably saw Ocarina of Time and were like, okay, like Mario 64, we're doing that now. And that was like, like Banjo-Kazooie was their take on Mario 64, this was their take on Ocarina of Time, because it was like a year or so afterwards. But even in the final game, it's very Ocarina of Time.
Totally,
influenced.
yeah. And it has some of those like Star Fox Adventures mechanics in there already, like getting Tricky to go and dig things up from the ground, like your little dog, basically. And it was really funny. I started attacking Tricky, and he starts growling at you like an angry dog. I can't remember if that was in the GameCube game or not. But
I don't remember that part of him growling at you, because he was very playful.
Yeah, he seems a lot more like. I mean, was Tricky always an asshole? I feel like Tricky was always a bit of an asshole.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so he kind of still has that stuff going on, and like, so basically it warps you to Fox, who's in the ice area, the snow area of the game, which I remember because there is like a race that happens there on the speeder bike thing, and so you do that race, you do the speeder bike race, and then you like fall down, and that's how you meet Tricky in this game. So I wonder if like they must have swapped around the areas and decided like, okay, we're going to start with the more traditional like jungle grassy area,
but that is where you meet Tricky in the final game as well.
Oh, in the ice area, is it?
Yes, because you start off and you land on, in Lightfoot. No, not what is it called? Thorntail Hollow.
Yeah, Thorntail Hollow, which is like the traditional kind of, it's green and there's lush plants around and everything.
And then you go off, and that's when you find like the snowy area, and you go on the speeder bike and you find Prince Tricky being taken off. Like that cutscene is like shot for shot remade in the GameCube version from the N64 original.
Wow, is it? I guess my memory must be just really bad about that stuff, because I always felt like I never got past that initial opening area as Fox, but I must have done, and I just don't remember. So. And
it even has the same thing of like he flies off, like say, off that cliff, and he falls into the pond at the bottom, and there's Tricky at the bottom. Like that's in the final game as well.
Damn, that's really cool. It's such a neat thing, and obviously I've been playing it on my PC through an emulator because there's no other. I mean, actually, there was someone in our Discord who had hooked it up to a CRT and was playing it through, I believe, through a cartridge on a CRT in some way, and that was pretty wild to see, because that's exactly what it was meant to be for originally. But
I'm not that well versed with with emulators and stuff, but I did hack my don't tell Nintendo. I hacked my Wii last year. And I've got like, I think it's called, the emulation thing's called Not N64 or something.
Oh, okay.
That is on my Wii, so I can play like a bunch of emulated N64 games. I'm wondering if I can play this on my Wii, which would be nuts.
So I'm wondering that, because I had an emulator called Project 64 that was not cooperating with me in any way. I tried to boot it up and it would just hang. It would be like fatal error, not loading. And I guess that's just because the build wasn't a final build, and it was like, it wasn't a regular ROM that you usually would get. And so I went looking to find what would be best. There's a program called RetroArch, which is just a revelation to me. I'm like, oh my God, how did I not know this thing existed? But it's basically it feels built for controller in a way, because it has like an interface that feels really consoleized, and you can download different cores for different emulators. And so I downloaded the N64 one on that, and it has all these features like running the game at full frame rate, so you can run it basically at 60. It just has like really cool options, and it's very streamlined and smooth, and it worked perfectly, worked flawlessly. Is just a really good experience if you want to try that out on computer. But you obviously need to have a good enough PC to run that stuff, which, it's an N64 game, so I think at this point even regular laptops and stuff should be fine with Star Fox and with Dinosaur Planet.
Yeah, sure. I definitely want to play this. Like, I'm such a big fan of the original
totally.
And Rare as a whole, as I've already said. But the fascinating thing about this as well coming out is a lot of sort of articles of interview, or websites have interviewed some of the people who worked on this game, and they've talked about like the development and what happened. And one of the cool things is that like the Diddy Kong Racing team that would go on to sort of start making this game originally had Timber the Tiger as the main protagonist.
Wow. Okay.
And then obviously his like style wasn't quite working apparently with what they were going for with Dinosaur Planet.
Yeah.
So they changed his model into Saber, and then they had Crystal as well. That's another weird thing about this game is that the final game is that. Like, I don't mind that they replaced Saber with Fox. That's fine in my mind. But the fact that, like, the core idea of this game was you were swapping between these two characters.
100%. I was going to bring that up because the guy tells you, like, you can swap any time. And I was like, oh, shit. Like, was the original plan to have dueling protagonists? And that would have been so cool. But
you
then...
don't play as Zelda in Nintendo games, though. That's the...
Yeah, exactly.
That's what
yeah, she literally gets put on ice and is just stuck there.
It's so nuts, though, that like the opening of Star Fox Adventures is you're playing as Crystal for the first, less than an hour, I think it is, and then the rest of the game you never play as her again. Spoilers for that game, I guess. You never play as Crystal ever again.
That's such a bummer. That is such a bummer, man. Because especially because she has, especially in this version, there is the staff, you actually get that in Adventure, but in this version you get your sword, which also shoots out like blasts of energy. Which I think they changed that because she does have her staff in this, and she uses it to solve some puzzles at the start. But yeah, it's.
But yeah, they got rid of the sword because they basically combined both Crystal and Saber into Fox.
Right. Yes.
Like in terms of like the character, their story,
the moveset and stuff, basically.
The moveset, yes, exactly, yeah.
Because you find it, right? Like it's embedded in the ground, like the Master Sword or something in a grove, and you like walk over to it, and Fox picks it up, and he's like, "What the hell is this thing?" And you start using it as your main weapon.
Yeah, because I think it gets thrown off like in one of the cutscenes at the beginning of Crystal, and it just obviously lands into like that was coincidence.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
It lands there, but like I found it funny as well, like how the UI, the menus and stuff are like are the same in the final game, like with the with the C stick thing that you flick around.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like that makes more sense on an N64 game because you're using a C button. But like in the final game, even as a kid, I found it weird. Like, why am I using a C stick to flick through this menu? Like, this feels really cumbersome and awkward. Like, why? And it's because it just carried over from the C buttons from the N64. It didn't change that interface at all.
No, exactly. Yeah, it just stayed the same. And there are a couple of areas I just got a bit stumped in the game, and I was like, what the hell am I supposed to do next? And the interface for navigating that stuff isn't super clear. So yeah, it clearly needed more development, which it got and turned into a different game. But it's still, what a fascinating like historical thing that has been released, and I love that it exists. There are people out there like trying to speedrun it and find glitches and stuff at the moment on Twitch, and yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, I'm hopefully you get to play that soon and take a look at it.
Definitely, and I love the fact that it did come out on GameCube because of like how Star Fox Adventures visually still holds up remarkably well. Like that game is 19 years old nearly, like 18 and a half years old.
I swear to God, still some of the best looking water in video games. Yeah. It's so good. It's so good.
I remember being blown away by that as a kid, and yeah, it still holds up with the fur effects as well. The Nintendo wouldn't do for a few more years with those fur effects.
Well, I mean, what is it with like GameCube launch / close to launch titles? Because like Rogue Squadron was similar in that way of like just looked amazing out the gate.
Oh, I remember getting my GameCube that launch weekend and playing playing Rogue Leader and just being blown away by how cool that game looked.
Yeah, for sure.
But Yeah, like but yeah, like I want to play almost like Dinosaur Planet on the GameCube, if you know what I mean. Like
right? Yeah, totally. Like, what if they had made this game and they'd never told Rare to put Fox in it? What would it look like on GameCube in that sense?
Yeah, exactly. And it had that, like, because this is the funny thing about Star Fox Adventures, right? You talked about Mario Sunshine earlier. That game runs at 30, and Star Fox Adventures runs at a crisp 60.
Yes, yeah, totally. So yeah, that was very, very cool, and so I recommend people go and finding that if you can. I mean, it's everywhere. It's the internet, right? It's never going away now. Nintendo cannot get rid of it. It's just there, so people can check that out.
Could you imagine if like Rare Replay Part 2 comes out and it's like Dinosaur Planet?
Man, I don't. But that's the thing, right? Is the shame about Rare Replay is they can't get certain games like some of the Donkey Kong stuff, or even I mean, GoldenEye's wrapped up in other licensing stuff. But
are there many games beyond those licensed games that aren't on Rare Replay that they could do?
A lot of the Game Boy games.
Okay, right.
Like they I was always shocked that those never. Not that they're like must-play games or anything, but there's loads of Game Boy games that Rare made that never made it on there.
Do you have a top 3 Rare games, or would that be giving away your list?
Of all time, you're talking?
Yeah.
Okay, so because it wouldn't ruin the list because there's a couple games missing. So like, okay. So, number 3 of all time is Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Oh, nice.
Number 2 is Banjo-Kazooie. And number 1 is, no shock for anyone who knows me, is my favourite game of all time. It is GoldenEye.
Oh, right.
Very cool.
And Conker's not on Rare Replay, is it? That's all?
It is,
Oh, it
actually.
is? Okay.
Yeah.
Is the locked and loaded, or is it?
No.
It's not. Oh, damn,
It's the original game, it's still in 4x3, but it runs a lot smoother than the original N64. I think it runs at a locked 30 rather than sub 20 that the original game did.
Yeah, that game definitely got very muddy and low frame rate at points for sure.
Yeah, and the resolution looks brilliant as well, like on Rare Replay. If you want to play Conker's Bad Fur Day, that for me is the definitive way to play that game.
For sure. Yeah, I've watched a playthrough of it before. It is a wild video game, and it has it's just like, how did this get made? How did this get released by Nintendo, or like with Nintendo's sanctioning in many ways? It's like, what? It's like this flower with massive boobs that you jump on, and it's like, what? Nintendo allowed this? This is crazy. But yes, Conker's Bad Fur Day, a wild trip. That people should take. Great. Well, the last thing I want to quickly touch on, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but this game Knockout City got announced this week, both in the Nintendo Direct and also in the State of Play. It got another trailer. It looks very much like here's another one of those multiplayer games that is just going to die, right? I look at this thing and instantly... Go for it.
Is it EA?
It's by Velen Studio. So Velen made the Mario Kart Live game last year, right? The real-life Mario Kart stuff. Velen is made up of Kartik Bala, who used to work for Activision on the Skylanders franchise. I believe this studio is him and his brother. And so they splintered off, basically, and they said they've been working on this game for 4 years, and I feel bad for them, because I look at this, and I see Ninjala, I see Morphe's Law, I see, like, Lawbreakers, all these lower budget, smaller multiplayer games, like arena style games that has some kind of fun addition to it, but ultimately will never get a big enough player base and will just die a slow death. But it's fun, it's neat. So basically I got a Steam code from work for like a closed beta that happened over the weekend, and it has some cool ideas. So it's basically 3 versus 3 dodgeball, where you have these balls that spawn on the map and you throw them at enemies. You lock onto enemies with the ball, but when you are being targeted, there's this kind of square around your screen, and it shows what side you're being targeted from, because you can turn quickly and use your like shield defensive thing to catch the ball midair. So even if someone's throwing it at you, you have a way of like catching it and then throwing it back at them, essentially. So it can get pretty frantic, right? Because if everyone's targeting you and throwing stuff at you, it's going to be a bad time. You won't have probably enough resources to deal with all that. And so it is about kind of managing your team and making sure everybody is working against, like if you have 2-on-1, it's a much better situation and things like that. But you can also turn yourself into a ball, so you can start rolling around and your teammates can pick you up and throw you at the enemy, right? Which is a pretty neat idea. And you have 2 health per life, essentially, so you can get hit once by a dodgeball and still have one more hit to go. but if you get hit by a human player, you die instantly. So it kind of makes sense for you to try and use your team as much as possible. However, if you roll around in a ball and you're near an enemy, they can pick you up and they can throw you, and if they throw you, you die. So it is a little bit of a risk of, you don't want to necessarily be rolling around that much when you're near enemies. You kind of want to prime it so that you're at an advantage and you have one of your teammates throwing you, and I think you can charge it up as well, and you turn into like a massive bomb that you can then drop on top of people and take out multiple people at once. It has really good feeling movement. There's a glide where you do a double jump, and the second jump is gliding across somewhere, and the maps are kind of built around that, where there's kind of open areas with wind and you can kind of drift around. But I don't know, I played it for maybe 45 to an hour, and it was cool. I certainly saw some kind of spark in it, but everything was like, it didn't quite feel like there was a high enough skill ceiling, or it didn't feel like there was enough interesting going on. I felt like I figured it out quite quickly, and beyond that, it didn't seem like there was much that you could take from it aside from, I'm just going to keep playing these battles again and again.
It sounds a bit like almost rock, paper, scissors with the whole, I'm going to throw this at you, you're either going to defend or you're not, and it all sounds like it kind of homes in. That's what the trailer
it does
suggests.
home in on you. You can dash out of the way, so you have a dash, but also it's really tricky. I think it gets really tricky when you're really close to somebody. If someone is standing right next to you and they throw the ball at you, you have a really short window to catch it, and so likely you just won't. Whereas if they're further away and they're like charging, throw it, you can anticipate that and catch it before it hits you. And so you do kind of want to keep those balls for when you're closer to your enemies than when they're super far away. Although if they're being distracted by someone else, you can get them in the back and they might not turn in time. So there is like a level of strategy to it, but it just feels really paper thin. And I think about these types of games, right? Like Morphe's Law is a good example of, okay, that was a neat idea, I guess, of like you are making people bigger and smaller and stuff like that. But it did feel ultimately something that just died and never really got any traction. I think part of that is it was a little bit messy. It wasn't super polished, but
quite shallow as well, I think.
Yeah, totally. And there's another game, Quantum League, that I think popped up recently that I was like interested in, and then no one really talked about it. It just feels like this, even with a big company like Ubisoft, right, with Hyperscape, who is talking about Hyperscape, right? Like that, and that's in a proven genre in Battle Royale. And it's just died. It is totally got no player base, or maybe it does. I don't know. Maybe it's one of those games that people do play. It's just I don't know about because people in my spheres aren't discussing it. But it's weird, and I question why studios try and make these types of games.
I think because I think they all dream that if you do hit it big, the ceiling is potentially Fortnite. I'm not saying anyone's going to do that anytime soon, but I think it's in investors' minds that like that's the ultimate aim right now. If we can replace Fortnite.
If you look at last year with Fall Guys and Among Us, like two multiplayer games that just broke through, I totally see the appeal. I just think this specific type of multiplayer game, you look at the previous competition, and I don't see this specifically being the thing you go for. I don't know.
I look at this sort of game though, and it's going to sound really harsh, but like it looks like a computer algorithm game of like what's popular right now. It's like here's Fortnite. It's a bit of Rocket League because of the ball aspect, and like a bit of Overwatch, and like
almost reminds me of Arms, the way the ball arcs like an arm in Arms or something.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, it just feels like sounds like a really cool idea, cool concept, but it to be honest, it looks like it's trying to appeal to everyone, and yet it seems to be appealing to no one.
That's a great way to put it, for sure. Yeah, like I didn't think about the Fortnite comparisons, but it certainly has that bubblegum pop kind of art style that also is like Ninjala evocative of, or also Splatoon evocative of that too. It certainly feels like they're trying to position it more to a Nintendo audience, but I would imagine this is free to play, right? Like I can't see them charging money for this because it feels like it would die even quicker if that was the case.
Yeah, it must be, surely.
Surely, right?
It's the sort of game, though, that's a free-to-play game. I look at it and go, it looks fine, I'll give it a go, and who knows, I might end up reliking it. So I guess that's what they're hoping for.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe I'll check it out again when it does come out on Switch. I want to see how that version looks. And they have announced it is cross-play, I believe, and cross-progression, which is great. Like, more games need to do that out the gate. It's always good stuff, But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. This is going to go too well for them. But we'll see. That studio, it's cool that they are making weird stuff, and the Mario Kart thing last year I would have killed for as a kid. I didn't buy it. I kind of still want to see if it goes on sale and buy that thing, if I'm honest. I don't know, it might work with carpets because there's lots of carpets in this house and don't have that much like wooden flooring to work with it, but
yeah. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. And I'm with you. I would have, as a kid, absolutely gone for that Mario Kart Live. But I'm like, can I really justify spending 80 quid? I probably would play it for one afternoon and then put it in the cupboard for the rest of the time.
Yeah, for sure. But hey, we'll see. Great. Well, that is going to close us out for the first segment. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back after the break to talk about remakes and Pokemon and all that good stuff. See you in a bit. All right, everyone, welcome back to the second part of the show. It's time to talk about remakes, remasters, reboots, re-releases of many kinds, and how we feel about them, what we think. I think this is interesting because it coincides in some ways with some recent announcements. Nintendo, obviously, no stranger to doing re-releases of different kinds on Switch, whether it be Wii U remasters or ports and things like that, or even from further generations, because we got Skyward Sword coming out soon, that is an HD version of that Wii game. But also, the Pokemon Company went ahead and announced a bunch of stuff, including, I guess, 2 reboots and a remake, if we want to categorize them differently. I guess New Pokemon Snap you could classify as, I guess, a sequel in some ways, but it has been a very long time since that's come out. But mainly Diamond and Pearl and the new Pokemon Legends Arceus game, which seems like Game Freak are actually doing the thing that people have wanted for a long time, which is making an open world Pokemon game and seeing what they can do with that type of thing. So how did you guys feel about the Pokemon Direct generally, and what went on with it?
I mean, I went in to most of these like Direct things with quite low expectations because, you can never tell when what they're going to show. But I went in there thinking I just want to see the new Pokemon Snap, and whatever else they show is a plus. Yeah. And to be honest, I've got some things to say, like some issues with what they showed, but I largely was really, really impressed and thrilled with the Direct.
Yeah. What about you, Bally?
Well, I went in more or less the same. Like, I'm very pumped for Pokemon Snap and wanted to see more of that. I was impressed by that. I feel like I was just hit across the head with like nostalgia feels by that opening montage, and I feel like they could have shown me absolutely anything after that, and I would have just lapped it up like a puppy, because like I just thought that opening montage was like one of the best things I've seen in terms of like hitting you with nostalgia, like arguably in any kind of Nintendo Direct, because I don't sometimes think that I'm actually that nostalgic about Pokemon, but then stuff like that I realize, wow, I'm really, really nostalgic about Pokemon as a series generally, especially with this 25th anniversary. And yeah, they got me.
It's like, because they've done this sort of thing before, the Pokemon Company, with like the nostalgia sort of stuff of like going back, but it's usually just, here's Red and Blue, here's Gold and Silver, here's Ruby and they went through everything, didn't they? All the spin-offs, like the anime and everything.
Like the typing game on DS. Like, what are you doing? Man, this is crazy.
It's an incredible level of production with it as well. It was just so well done.
It's like pseudo stop motion stuff going on. It was it's like multiple e-readers. I didn't even realize there's a second e-reader. Like, what is, it's crazy. So yes, it was very impressive from that perspective, and I think a lot of people were expecting Diamond and Pearl remake to be the kind of main thing. I think think it was kind of a toss-up between, are they going to do another Let's Go game, or are they going to do another traditional like remake? It's kind of the time for that. And it's really interesting that what they've done. It seems like, because Game Freak are working on this other thing, they gave this game to a different studio, Ilka, and I looked them up. They seem to be a support studio for a lot of different Japanese games they've worked on. I think they worked on Nier and stuff like that. They also apparently worked on the Domino's app in Japan, which was very strange. But they don't seem to have done any of their own projects. And I think just because they're probably quite a small studio, the scope of remake that they have done is slightly different. Because I think a lot of people expected it to be in the Sword and Shield engine, right? And just be based on that, because that's generally what these remakes are. You know, when they did Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, that was based on the X and Y engine. And similar stuff with, Fire Red and Leaf Green was based on Ruby and Sapphire. So this feels different just because it feels more pared back. It feels more of a one-to-one remake in a lot of ways than, going crazy with it and just being a bit more direct. So the art style, certainly divisive, I feel. What do you guys think of the art style? It was, I don't know, I think I found it jarring at first, but I've kind of come around to it. I kind of am okay with it now.
I mean, I agree with you, yes. I also have come around to it slightly, but I hate to sound like the negative sort of like the internet like going mad about the art style, but like I do think that like it looks like a mobile game. In not a great way.
Yes, it has that kind of feel to it. I know exactly what you mean.
It's like the shininess to it,
Yeah, and like the textures don't look great or anything. Like it just doesn't have a lot of shadows. Even in the in-battle sort of segments don't look that great either. Like even compared to the Let's Go games, I think it looks wildly underwhelming in terms of visuals. The water looks nice, I guess, but like it's still everything is still grid-based. You can tell like this isn't like a full-on remake at all. Like you say, very one-to-one. And I don't mind the chibi art style as a concept is fine, but I don't think it's done particularly well here. Like, you look at something like Link's Awakening, that looks like fucking brilliant.
So good, amazing.
And yet, like, this doesn't have the same charm at all as like the originals or as that. Like, or even go for something like, mentioned earlier in the podcast about Triangle Strategy and Octopath Traveler. Go for that like HD 2D style, maybe, if you want to.
Man, if they made a Pokemon game that looked like that, that would be amazing.
Yeah, and instead they got this like, on this thing, this just kind of generic looking chibi mobile art style that kind of looks like a fan remake.
I totally see what you mean. There's been a lot of art out there of like fan art. One of the funniest ones was just like the character models, just their face on top of feet, and it's just like very short little characters. And it definitely has that vibe to it. It feels like it's trying to evoke what Link's Awakening was doing it, but without the level of polish and without the kind of...
But without the effort.
Without the consideration, I guess, for what makes that kind of style work, right? Because there is the toy-like nature to Link's Awakening's world, and they capture that so brilliantly with that art style. But again, this is Ilka. It's a very small studio. They don't have the same budget as like a mainline Nintendo studio. And I always question this as well, is like, why are not more resources put towards Game Freak or the people they work with?
When
right?
they
because
sell like 20 million copies
literally
every year.
The most profitable franchise ever of anything. Like, the most profitable franchise in history. And yet, they always seem like they're working with this such small team, and they can never make anything that's that ambitious, which is why I think it's quite interesting. The other game that got announced, which is Pokemon Legends Arceus. I say Arceus, by the way. They said Arceus, and I was that's not. I always pronounced Pokemon names differently when I was younger, and some of them I stuck to, some of them I didn't. But I feel like in the UK we pronounce Pokemon names slightly different to how other people pronounce them. I think sometimes, but yes, this game. They're doing open world Pokemon in some ways, or at least that's kind of what it feels like. The comparisons being invited about Breath of the Wild, I think, I don't know, in some ways are unfair, but they are kind of putting it on themselves of like doing the same shot.
Yes,
of like here's the zoom behind the character and the wide open world before you. They are inviting the comparisons, but I don't know.
Obviously, gameplay-wise, it's going to be wildly different to Breath of the Wild, but even to the point of you can crouch walk in the long grass. And I know, obviously, Breath of the Wild didn't invent crouch walking in the long grass, but like it even looks like the same animation style as Link, like crouch walking and like sort of hunting the animals. But obviously, you're throwing Pokeballs in this on like into a Shinx, and it's like yeah, like this looks like they played Breath of the Wild and went, yeah, we need to do that, but in Pokemon, which is cool because as a Pokemon fan who's wanted that for years, this is exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
However, it does look very rough.
Yes. No, totally. That's my biggest takeaway from it. Bally, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I couldn't be more pleased with the direction. I'm very skeptical of whether they'll stick the landing. But, even if they put out a fairly rough open world game, and we can talk about maybe if it's meant to come to Switch Pro at the start of next year or something, if we're worried about those frame issues, which I think in the trailer were just horrendous. But I do think even if they don't stick the landing on their first Pokemon open world game, the fact that they are trying a Pokemon open world game is unbelievably positive and awesome, and hopefully even if this initial one isn't great, then down the line there could be like a proper well done open world Pokemon game and kind of take a step in the right direction.
Yeah, totally. It's good that it feels like they were very resistant to this idea, especially I saw Ben Hansen on Twitter tweeting, because he visited their offices and did interviews with them when he was at Game Informer, and like suggesting this idea. They were very like, doesn't sound like something that would work with Pokemon, right? Like they kind of feel, I wonder how much of this is a reaction to the backlash of Sword and Shield, and how much they even listen to that kind of stuff, but it does maybe feel like they have been goaded in this direction to some degree. Like they feel a little stubborn in their set in their ways. Pokemon has always been a very iterative series that barely changes. So the fact that they're even doing this is positive.
Or what if they've always hid behind the shield of, but Nintendo hardware is never powerful enough to do a fully fledged open world game, and then Breath of the Wild blows it out the water. It's like maybe that's forced their hand to some degree. I don't know. Right,
but again, Game Freak are a studio that have traditionally worked on handheld systems, and so they have a kind of limited ability to work with, graphics that are higher than a 3DS level. Sword and Shield showed that in some senses. I still think that game looked fine and it looked good in many areas, but there were certainly drawbacks for their art team and things like that, and just texture-wise. But there are definitely teams at Nintendo who have very good open world experience. Monolith Soft chief among them, who have just made some of Nintendo's best open world games in the Xenoblade series. And I just want Nintendo to like step in here or something and be like, okay, here's Monolith Soft, here's the Breath of the Wild team, like give them some experienced people who know how to make this type of game, because it feels at the moment that they are struggling with what they've shown. And I question whether that's because they, are as a team have just been very stubborn about it, and they kind of just want to forge their own way, their own path through it, or if it's just very early development and they just decided to show it because they knew there might be some form of backlash from the Diamond and Pearl remake art style. I'm not sure, but
yeah, I can't. Did I say this maybe on the podcast, or was it before? But my theory being that like I think that the Legends was supposed to be the game for later this year, but because of COVID and maybe certain development issues happened, that they've had to push it to next year, but it's still in the same fiscal year. So it's like, okay, we've got to have a Pokemon game out this year.
Yeah.
So maybe this Diamond and Pearl remake kind of looks not half-assed, because that sounds really harsh, but do you know what I mean?
What if they've been delayed by the Switch Pro being delayed? If the Switch Pro has been delayed, what if it's all been held up, and Breath of the Wild 2 could be rolled into that arguably, what if it's all on this track of, hey, Switch Pro is meant to be 21, but it's going to be 22.
I think you're overestimating how well Nintendo and Pokemon Company work together.
True. Yes, 100%. Yeah. I mean, it's just such a weird relationship.
You're so right though. Like, could you imagine if like Monolith helped out on this game? Like you said, they helped out on Breath of the Wild, and they have that pedigree, they have that knowledge of making these big open world RPGs. Like, that would be amazing.
It would be. My dream Pokemon game is just Monolith making a Pokemon game, because I think it would be very different and very cool. But
one of my friends actually mentioned like the fact that we're very unlikely to get voice acting in this Pokemon Legends as well.
That's so true. You're very correct about that. Yes. Oh, it's going to be really weird as well, because it feels like they're positioning it as a single player story thing, like without multiplayer. I saw actually some tweets about this, that supposedly it's not turn-based either. Apparently it's using an ATB system, and that was from some Japanese stuff that had been going around, but what they showed made it look like it was turn-based. I'm not sure what's going on there.
Maybe it's almost like the original Final Fantasy VII battle system.
Yeah.
Like, where it's sort of like almost like a timer sort of thing.
Yes, exactly. That could be the case, but I think we're just going to have to wait and see if they do that. I don't know if this will be early 2021 because it looked rough enough that it could get very delayed, into
2022.
Later. Oh, sorry, yes, 2022. It could get even later delayed into 2022 at this point. Because also, I think people are expecting Breath of the Wild 2 to come out in early 2022. So, do you really want to be releasing an open world Pokemon game around this time that comes out? Probably not. So, yeah, it's weird. But I think overall, this was a good presentation. Definitely one of the better Pokemon ones. Right? It's not one of those where you rock up and they're like, here's a MOBA on phones. Yay.
Oh god, yeah, we didn't even see any of that, did we? Yeah,
no.
Thank God.
Here's an app for your kids where they're brushing their teeth. Enjoy, everybody.
Pokemon Sleep.
Pokemon Sleep, right? Have they forgotten about that? I don't know. But there's a thing with Pokemon presentations where you really don't know what you're going to get. So I think this is definitely one of the better ones.
Yeah, I mean, I went in hoping for Gen 4 remakes. We got that, and then something else entirely amazing. So yeah.
And Pokemon Snap, I think, is looking very good.
Yes.
And I think they're really. It feels like they are really evoking the N64 game massively, both in the way that you're taking the pictures and the way that they're rated, for example. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and they're modernizing that concept as well, having the share function and having, share your photos and your people will give you likes and they'll get featured.
Yeah, how many pictures all over Twitter and Instagram are they going to be?
Yeah. Twitter is going to be flooded with that when that game comes out. Absolutely. There's going to be a lot of funny images, I'm sure. And I don't know, they haven't spoken much about the core aspect of the game, but it looks very similar in terms of you're on rails. And I do wonder, the original Pokemon Snap had specific poses that Pokemon would always do, and so I wonder if there's a bit more variety there, because you don't want a situation where all the Pokemon just do the same canned animations every time you go through the level, and it feels very static, because then everyone on Twitter is just going to have the same pose, the same picture, right? So I wonder if they are changing it in that way, or if they've even thought about that as a thing.
I highly doubt it, and from what I've seen, I think there will be canned animations based on every run will be the same, as it were, but the N64.
Yeah, but you throw the luminous balls on them or whatever,
doing
and they
things to the level that change their behaviors, but it is all quite fixed. I'd be surprised if that changes, but I agree it would be nice if they mix it up more, because as you say, everyone's going to have the same picture of Articuno on Twitter as everyone else, if that's the case.
Yeah.
But
can I just say how nice that game looks though?
Yeah.
Visually, it looks so appealing.
Yes, definitely. It's rare that people are praising how good a Pokemon game looks, so it's a new thing for once, I guess.
It's almost like they've given it to a different, more competent developer or something.
Interesting. I don't know who is making. Is this Bandai Namco working on this? Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently they weren't good enough for Metro Prime 4, but they're good enough for Pokemon Snap.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, give them something a bit smaller in scope, and they will run away with it for sure. But yes, that all sounds good, all looks good, and it just speaks, I guess, to a trend in video games that we've just been seeing so much of in recent years. And I think this last console generation especially, remakes, remasters, ports, all that stuff, old games being new games again, has just become a very common thing. And how do you guys feel about it in general? How do you feel about the culture of the things that get big pops at press conferences now are things like Final Fantasy VII Remake, because it's based on nostalgia, because it's a new thing, an old thing coming back, being new again. Do you like that trend? Do you prefer seeing new games enter the industry, or do you think this is just something that we are just going to live with going forward?
Yeah, I think from a personal perspective, it is a tragedy that we have played all these Wii U games day one, and then they're coming like 2 a year or at least to Switch. From a personal perspective, it sucks and it's annoying. But from a financial one, I would do exactly the same. I would do the same thing if I was in Nintendo's shoes. And it's impressive that they've added stuff like Bowser's Fury to 3D World, or I know there's added stuff in Pikmin 3. It's a shame there was less added stuff in games before, I guess Tropical Freeze had Funky Mode, but that's kind of minimal in comparison, arguably. And so that's a shame in one sense, but it's totally understandable. I love the culture of actual remakes and reimaginings, even if it's marginal, like Link's Awakening, or something massively substantial like Final Fantasy VII Remake. I absolutely love ideas that take nostalgia, play with it, and do something new and different to a franchise, and then reboots, full reboots, I think are probably the rarest of the bunch right now, but they can be done really well. Maybe I can't think of any good Nintendo ones, arguably, off the top of my head. I guess Kid Icarus was one. Yeah,
Kid Icarus Uprising is like the biggest one. Yeah,
I mean, can you think of many other than Kid Icarus? But I mean, that was quite an interesting comeback. So
it depends what you define it as. I would define Breath of the Wild as a reboot of Zelda.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
yeah. And God of War is probably the most high-profile one, I would say, for other platforms. But
I do like those. Yeah, like God of War is an example of I even know I have problems with that game, but like here's a reboot, but also it's a sequel.
Yes,
It still uses the continuity of the previous games, but you don't have to have played them necessarily to enjoy this game. It is like a fresh start at the same time.
Yeah,
I think it is, from a financial perspective, incredibly frustrating how much Nintendo in particular get away with when it comes to the price they charge for very minimal remasters. We've just had the Mario 3D collection, which in comparison to Skyward Sword, I personally feel better about paying the £50 for 3 games versus £50 for one game that has had a marginal improvement in terms of HD 60 frames per second, using the analog stick as the sword. Even though those are cool things, the full price tag just feels so tricky, and the fact that you know that it will stay at that price for such a long time, whereas say PlayStation Remaster, I don't know, say let's say like Nathan Drake Collection again or something, it drops in price so fast, and you can get it on sale for like a tenner, and
they gave it away for free last year.
They gave it away for free, for God's sake. So like the way that this maybe isn't Nintendo's fault necessarily, but like the way that they just absolutely take as much money from their fans and consumers as possible for remastering old games is where it feels it's most harsh. And I would much rather have preferred a Zelda collection that included Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, and I would buy that for £50 tomorrow. And I personally, I'm not the biggest fan of Skyward Sword, so I'm not going to pick up this game. But even if I was, £50 or like £60, like that's an awful lot for marginal improvements.
I think this is the thing with Nintendo. They sort of, where they value their games. The more recent games, like Skyward Sword, which is only 10 years old, they'll value that game as a full price game still. Whereas the case of Super Mario 64, they'll price that as a £20 game or less than that.
Which is still massively more than,
of course,
say, a PlayStation 1 game, for sure.
But like, I think that's the reason why the collection was, say, like 64, Sunshine and Galaxy, and not like Galaxy 2 and 3D World, because like, even though that would be a cool trilogy collection to also have, like they price those games because they're too recent to they reckon they can get away with it by basically charging full prices, which is what they did.
Especially 3D World, right, which is literally like only a few years old. I guess, it's 2013 now. It's a long
8
time
years
ago.
old.
Oh boy, it's 8 years. That's actually not that far off from Skyward Sword.
It
now
really
that you say,
isn't.
I feel old. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's weird because a lot of what Nintendo has put onto the Switch, I wouldn't even call remasters. I would just call them ports in a lot of senses, right? Like, there's barely a difference visually for something like Pikmin 3, for example. And, that has added some stuff, but that really is more of a port than a remaster.
Yeah, they're ports with, like, tiny other improvements than full-on remasters,
Or, like, little DLC things, you know?
Yes, yeah.
But, like, in the case of, with the Skyward Sword thing, of, like, when Wind Waker was announced, and it was Wind Waker HD on Wii U, obviously everyone was like so pleased to see that game again. And it was like, because it was fresh at the time that Nintendo were doing a remake, it was like a visual style that was still true to the original game, but still looked phenomenal. And everyone loved it, and everyone thought, oh, that's brilliant. And then, a few years later, Twilight Princess did the same thing, but no one really cared about the Wii U by 2016.
I do think Wind Waker, after the like Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time, like it's got a fairly substantial fan base when it comes to like traditional Zeldas. Not to blow my own horn in anyway, because I'm a big Wind Waker fan, but generally speaking, come on, it's a bit more popular than Skyward Sword.
Generally speaking, the cliff falls off at Twilight Princess, right? Like, most people agree all the games up to Wind Waker are fantastic, and then Twilight Princess people are less a fan of, Skyward Sword even less people are a fan of, and I just happen to be someone who likes Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword more than most people. But yes, that tends to be the case.
I would much rather pick up a re-release on Switch of Link's Awakening. Not Link's Awakening, sorry. Link Between Worlds.
Yes.
If they redid that game, and not going to do too much to it, but just essentially make it HD, put it on Switch, I'd much rather play that than Skyward Sword.
Yeah, I think that's for a lot of people. I am very much an outlier. I adore Skyward Sword. I think it has like the best dungeon design in the series, and I loved it when it came out, and just have very good memories of it. And I'm very interested to go back and play it because I was always someone who defended the motion controls and thought they worked pretty well, honestly. And there's some really interesting design in that combat. But it's full of fluff. There's lots of padding in that game. And at the time I was like, this is great. This is my one game I'm playing. 50 hours, just give it all to me, right? And today I think it's just very different because I play lots of different games. I'm always bouncing around, so dedicating that amount of time to a game is probably somewhat different. But
yeah. That was 2011 was like the year of the Sky, wasn't it? Like Skyrim, Skylanders, yes. Skyward Sword.
All at the same time.
And then what was the... why am I blanking on the James Bond title? Skyfall.
Skyfall, yes. Damn. Wow. I never thought about it that way, but you're right. All that stuff in 1 year.
Although cheating, like the Skyfall was 2012, but still, it was around the same time.
Close enough. We'll throw them all in together. Yeah, for sure. But do we think that remakes are a good thing for the industry, a bad thing? I feel like they generate a lot of excitement, and it depends on the type, right? Like something like Resident Evil 2 or Final Fantasy 7 is always going to get a lot more buzz than Final Fantasy 12 Remastered, right? It's just the case of the games that get chosen, the franchises that get chosen, and what they do with them ultimately, right? Because I think a lot of people think those games took what was in the original but then just blew it up in a way that made it different, and also being true to the original, like it being something completely different.
I also think like it's the case of you got to remember that sometimes for people the Switch is their first system.
Yes, so very true.
To get Skyward Sword, like for us, is like who have played that 10 years ago, whatever sort of thing. But like for people who are grown up with the Switch and I want to play this Zelda game that I never got to play because I didn't have a Wii or at the time. I think it is healthy in that way that more people can play older games.
Yeah, it was interesting. Anuma was talking about that, like almost pitching it to people whose first Zelda was Breath of the Wild, being like, "Oh, did you know that like Skyward Sword did that whole sailcloth thing first? Oh, also the stamina thing, that was Skyward Sword as well. By the way, we did crafting in Skyward Sword." And like all of these things are like, I don't know if I buy your argument, Anuma, but I see what he's trying to do. Of like, look, a lot of fucking people bought Breath of the Wild. Most of them haven't played Skyward Sword. I got to pitch this to them somehow, and that's true.
I knew where he was coming from with that, but I first thought he was going to say they expanded on those features and put them into Skyward Sword like retroactively. I was thinking, oh wait, you can glide around. Oh no, he's just literally talking about the sailcloth was kind of like a precursor to it.
Yeah, the sailcloth, which was literally a canned animation of like press A before you land.
You can to save yourself from dying. Yeah, great.
Even if you don't press A before you land, it doesn't matter.
Does it not?
No, if you don't press anything, it still like comes out.
It automatically happens. Yeah. No, it's not. It's like that Avengers. If you don't press the animation for the QTE,
the Hulk is just standing
just like all the music fades away, and it's just like him standing in midair until you just press the button. God, that was wild when I saw that on social media. It's crazy stuff. Yeah. Cool. Well, and what is our preference generally? Do you buy a lot of remakes, Dan? Are you someone who or remasters if something you haven't played before and it gets prettied up and gets put out on a new console? Is that something that appeals to you? Do you want to see these old games come back for stuff that you've missed?
So yes, I do want to see old games come back I missed, especially when it's like, okay, here's a GameCube game and it ran at 30 frames and the resolution wasn't great because of course it was a GameCube game. Okay, here it is now on modern systems. Like it's like, I guess it's a bad example, but the 13 remake that came out last year, I love 13. I'm a massive fan of that GameCube game, and I was so looking forward to seeing that. Essentially, it's supposed to be like a faithful remake, not like a Final Fantasy 7 style remake. Like here's a faithful remake of this game, and I wanted to play it until obviously it was a bad port or bad version of that.
It's just like the visuals didn't line up to what that original had looked like at all. It's just a wild miss on their part. And speaking of that, Prince of Persia is another example of Ubisoft calling it a remake where really it's a remaster, right? And it's like these words become interchangeable and are not necessarily used with the proper, way they should be.
There is definitely a little bit of a grey area between these three different categories that we kind of put games into now. Of like here's a re-release, here's a remaster, and here's a remake. Like. Yeah,
it gets tricky. We do a video game fantasy league, and just defining what is what and what will be allowed it to be drafted is always like a hard thing to know, because Link's Awakening was allowed, but when I look at that game, it really is more of a one-to-one, remaster in some senses than a full-blown remake.
Nbz's also grumpy he didn't get Link's Awakening, so like this has to be
just because someone else got the points, yes.
But like another example of like a GoldenEye remake, if you can really call that a remake, it's more of a reimagining sort of thing.
Oh yeah, the GoldenEye on Wii is definitely more of a reboot in some senses, right? Like it felt more like a Call of Duty in like its multiplayer, and I don't know. I did enjoy that GoldenEye game on Wii. It's pretty cool, but it's definitely very different from the original, and is doing different things.
As a huge fan of the original game, I think on its own, the GoldenEye 2010 Wii version, Reloaded, whatever you want to call it, I think is on its own is a great game. But like as a remake of GoldenEye, it doesn't do that game justice because it doesn't really incorporate what the good things about that original game in terms of level design and structure.
Totally, it's not faithful in the way that you want it to be, right? So that's definitely another totally different type of one. But yeah, Bally, what about you? What is your kind of preference?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think Nintendo-wise, I don't play a ton of remakes and remasters. Obviously, we played the Mario 3D Collection. I thought that was a great thing to do, especially for the podcast. And it was nice to go back to those games, but otherwise, of course, I played like Wind Waker HD. But other than that, there's not a ton that I've gone back to. It's more non-Nintendo stuff, and obviously I picked up PlayStation in 2018, and loads of the games I played on PlayStation 4 have been like remasters, remakes, reboot, not less so reboot. I guess God of War's reboot, obviously, but like loads of games there because I've just never owned any PlayStation console that there's a lot of their best games. Like I've just played Shadow of the Colossus. That's a PlayStation 2 game that's been like remade.
And they did a really good job throughout the PS3 era of bringing a lot of those old games back, right? They did the Jack trilogy and the Ratchet stuff came over.
Exactly.
And Sly.
So I think
Sly as well.
I think you have to visualize every console from the perspective of what if that person's never owned a console in that line, because I think Sony have been generally very good at that, and this is where I think the debate merges a bit with backwards compatibility, where I think you can kind of cover a lot of patches in the sense, like I can't play Shadow of the Colossus PlayStation 2 disc on my PS5, but I can obviously play the PlayStation 4 remake, so it's like covering those holes to make sure that your best games historically are still playable. I think that's really important, especially for new gamers who are new to a system or a line like Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft.
Yeah, totally. I'm very into the idea of just re-releases generally, just because I'm someone who likes video game history and would like to go back and play, one day I would like to have played every Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest game, as I keep saying on this show. And Square Enix keeps making it easier by being like, okay, here's a version of Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9. They all have like 3 times speed mode, so you can just get through the battles faster. They have like infinite like health stuff, so that if you are struggling with some of the weird like mechanics, it's much easier to just fudge it through. Stuff like that is super cool, especially because it's not like an emulator where you run it at like 10 times speed and the music gets all fucked up. Final Fantasy 12 has like 5 or 6 times speed and the music stays exactly the same. It's just your character walks really quickly and moves really fast, which is a bit jarring, I guess, but I do like that when they bring these games back, they oftentimes do things to them to make them more playable. Like I'm going through every Yakuza game right now, and Kiwami 1 and Kiwami 2 are great remakes because those old PS2 games are just kind of not what I want to play today, right? They just don't hold up in the same way. And they've put all of those on Game Pass. They've got Yakuza 3, 4, and 5, all PlayStation 3 games, fully remastered, now there and available. And it's just, for someone who wants to go back and experience those older things, a much more modern way to do so. And I think that's the best thing that you can say about these types of releases, is that they make them more palatable to people playing in 2021.
Totally.
So
I think this is when you get into the conversation of like a game preservation.
Yes.
About like how I think it's really healthy for the industry to make sure that these games are still, like you say, are not only coming back but also in cool, unique ways. I was talking on the podcast I do with Liam Robertson, the most recent one, about someone was asking, are we ever going to see Beautiful Joe make a comeback? And it's like, how no one can play those games unless you go back and get a PS2 or GameCube to play those originals.
Totally. Yeah, and that is in some ways a failing on Nintendo's part to do good virtual console curation of GameCube stuff, which just hasn't happened simply, right? Like, it's one of those, that era, especially for Nintendo, feels so closed off from people because there hasn't been an easy way to access them. No. And it's a bummer. And
it's the thing with the whole Nintendo and Disney Vault thing of like, okay, it's cool to have this Nintendo Switch online, but then, in 10 years' time when that isn't going to be online, you won't be able to play Mario World on your Switch.
Yeah,
whereas I can still get out my Wii and because I've downloaded Mario World on my Wii through the Virtual Console, that's still on that system.
Mm-hmm. No, very true. Yeah, it's this weird place we're in with digital media where we don't necessarily own anything that we have, and like if we lose it, like PT is a great example of that thing exists on only PS4s that have it downloaded because you literally can't download it from the store anymore, and so if that PS4 breaks, it's gone.
PT is literally the sole reason why I have not got rid of my original PS4.
Wow, you could sell that for a lot these days, like getting a PT PS4 out there, that's only going to increase in value, I think, and unless like Sony does some deal and there's rumors of Silent Hill coming back and everything like that, but who knows. Well, cool, that's good stuff we've chatted about. I think we should go through and talk about, we all have prepared a remaster, a remake and a reboot that we would like to see. So let's go around and chat about those. Bally, do you want to kick us off with, let's start with remasters. Right. What remaster do you want to see?
Super simple. Let's get F-Zero GX on Switch. It deserves an HD glow up. It deserves online multiplayer, and more or less, let's just keep everything else the same. This is a basic remaster. Let's do it. And I think this is generally a good financial move by Nintendo, where it will be cheaper to do that, and then they can say, look, if it sells well, we'll make a brand new F-Zero ground up. If not, we'll forget about F-Zero and keep Captain Falcon and Smash Brothers for the foreseeable for the future. Like, I think
most children these days only know Captain Falcon from Smash Brothers. So.
Exactly. So I do think it would have the potential of selling 3-4 million, like many titles on Switch seem to be able to do. So yeah, let's see it.
Also, you could include the AX sort of content that was exclusive to the arcade version, and you could put that in this re-release. Right,
because didn't people find that was secretly hidden in the code of GX?
Yes,
wow.
It's wild. Funny how years later, with people, Capcom got found out about having on-disc DLC.
Yeah,
and they were rightly sort of shamed for that. But it was like, years later, find out that Nintendo did the same thing with F-Zero.
Secret DLC, the arcade version, just in there from the beginning. That's crazy for sure. I like that idea. I think like online multiplayer certainly is a good sell for that,
because Nintendo is so good at online multiplayer, as we've been
Well, the thing is, right, like, we talk about Mario Kart as a good example of online multiplayer for them, and I think this is in the same league. Bally, do you think that they should make the game easier though when they re-release it?
I mean, it has an easy mode. It's not like
but here's the thing: is that easy mode really an easy mode? Because I know what people talk about with F-Zero.
It's not. I wouldn't say it's easy. I just say it's less hard. Yeah, sure. Yeah. But,
yes.
I like the challenge of F-Zero. I wouldn't necessarily take that away massively, but they could have a much easier. They could call it very easy or much easier mode, or I don't know. Yeah. Sure.
It's interesting that you took, because people want Shinen to do a new F-Zero, because obviously, and I don't know what they're doing these days.
Right. Well, they put out the Fast game, and they put out the Tourist.
Yeah,
that
was a couple of years ago. So what they've been working on since?
Yeah, that is interesting. I think the Tourist was an interesting thing.
I liked it.
Yeah, I didn't finish it, but I played a good amount of it, and it had some neat ideas in there. But they make really nice looking games, so they are well equipped, I would think, to do one of those. And they've made their own version of F-Zero in many ways. So
I do think if they were to make it, it would be more of a scaled down F-Zero, because they're not a very big team. So you probably think something more along the lines of F-Zero original or X, maybe, and not GX with a big story mode.
Yes, totally. How many cutscenes are in GX, Bally? Is that a big focus at all?
Loads. I think I never actually finished the campaign, to be honest. I need to go back and play the game, honestly. It's making me want to.
I don't think anyone really did.
Yeah.
No.
I want to say I got to mission 15, 16 out of like 22 missions, and I'd say there's at least 2 or 3 cutscenes per mission. So there's a lot in there.
Yeah. Definitely, give that a glow up. I think that for me is the most obvious way to bring back F-Zero, right?
Yeah.
You want to You want to do something that's easier, that is less risky, but also like leaves the door open for more.
Exactly.
And
it's a win-win.
And that would be good. Yeah, great. Dan, what about you? What do you want to see remastered?
So I had 2 remasters written down here, and one of them was F-Zero GX because I thought they might be gone. Right. So I've got another one instead. Great. I've got Kid Icarus Uprising.
Ah, nice. And this is the interesting part of that recent Direct. 3DS, things are, the door is open now for those, because Miitopia, for some reason they're putting Miitopia on, so that's the 3DS game they chose? Miitopia. Yeah. Okay, sure. Talk about Kid Icarus Uprising. I mean,
it's a 3DS game that very much was developed for that system. I just think that, I'm definitely one of those people that, I like Kid Icarus Uprising. I think that the story's brilliant, the voice acting, the dialogue is fantastic.
Some of the funniest writing, honestly, Nintendo has ever had. Yeah,
genuinely, it's one of the funniest games, and I think it's a brilliant game. But I can't play that game for too long because I get hand cramps because it's so awkward with the 3DS with the stylus and doing it. So I just
did you use the stand that came with it?
I think I used it when it first came out, and I realized that this is just kind of still more awkward.
It hurt my wrist, because my wrist was leaning on the table while playing at the same time.
And I'm not someone that's ever I get wrist ache from playing VR or from playing Wii games back in the day. I never have any issues with that. But Icarus Uprising, I was just always it's just awkward to hold. Put it on the Switch, dual analog stick control, fully HD-ify the whole thing, but the same game essentially. You probably have to get rid of the AR mode, I guess, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that was very minimal, as I recall.
Really cares about that. So, and it's got the multiplayer as well, which, they could probably expand on that maybe more and put it on the Switch as well.
I remember watching, Nintendo World Report tournament of Kid Icarus Uprising online multiplayer and being like, man, I was terrible at that game. I literally turned it down to the lowest heat level possible and just went through it for the story basically because I was just dying terribly. But I think with Nintendo and the way they do these types of versions, I wouldn't be surprised if they kept some of the touchscreen stuff just because the Switch has a touchscreen,
Yeah. And then they could probably do what they did with 3D World, where I don't know if you've seen that, where a lot of the touchscreen stuff, if you're playing it in docked, you have a pointer instead.
Yes, totally. Yeah, so you can use, and I imagine they would do the same thing here, which is using motion controls which would actually work quite well because it gives you a second analog stick for control of the camera, while also having the the ability to motion aim your shots at places, which is probably quite good.
And they could make with that, with the second analog stick, they could make the on foot sections less awkward because. I love Uprising, but the on foot sections were always slightly awkward to control, and I think
totally
with full analog stick controls, that would be, I think, better.
Yeah, it was always the struggle of aiming, but also flicking the screen to change the camera angle, and it never quite came together. But yeah, that game it's one of the best looking 3DS games, honestly. It's stunning visually, and so I think it would translate quite well. Put a new coat of paint on it, for sure. It's just requires, Nintendo to take their shackles off of Sakurai as he's chained to the Smash Brothers desk, unless they want someone else to remake it, which I'm sure they could do.
Yeah, I mean, just get someone like Blue Point.
Yes, yeah, I don't know. I feel
maybe that's a bit too much, but
Sony are going to buy Blue Point very soon, so that won't be an option anymore.
Yeah, but they haven't already, but
yeah. Grezzo probably would be Nintendo's choice there. Yeah.
Again, that's the difference though. This is the grey area of remakes and remasters.
Yeah,
because Grezzo are very much the remake side of things now, I think. Whereas
they're doing that Miitopia remake.
Yeah, which I would call a port in some sense.
Remaster.
It's
Remaster,
kind of remaster. God, it's too hard to say any of these things. But that's why we're doing it. My choice would be a game that I've never played, and the reason is because it's so expensive, and I want to actually play it. It's Chibi Robo.
I thought you were going to say that.
Yeah, Chibi Robo. So there's a local CEX, which is a store in the UK that do used games, and it's had a copy of Chibi Robo there for literally years, and it has never been sold. It's 90 quid, and then I saw it went up to 110 quid. No one is going to go into a shop and just buy that sight unseen. I don't understand why. It's just one of those rare GameCube games that is impossible to find for a good price, and it's never been re-released, it's never been remade, and I think I would like this as a remaster because I've heard that the original game is actually really well made and is an interesting thing, and I think they could probably streamline some of it, just make it a bit more modern, but also I just want to experience it in its original form in some ways, so just giving it a nicer coat of paint and making it bit prettier and high resolution frame rate would be all I really need for it, because I just want to know what that game is about. Have you played it before, Dan? Have you had any experience with Chibi Robo?
No, it's one of those franchises that I've just always wanted to play, and I remember reading it, the original in a magazine, thinking, oh, this game looks really cool, and then it came out the tail end of the GameCube. I wasn't working at the time, I was still at school, so I couldn't just go and buy the game, so I'd never bought it. And then obviously the game never went down in price, it only went up. I'm just looking now on eBay, and it's like, here's a pre-owned copy going right now for £97, another one going for 100 and what was it? I just scrolled past £130. It's like, oh god, 161 here as well. Like,
yeah, we're in that era now where people who grew up with GameCube have disposable income and are buying up their old nostalgia collections, right? And so the prices are just skyrocketing. And same thing with those Fire Emblem games. Like the GameCube Fire Emblem game is like 200 quid. It's just like, I can't. It's too much, man. I need them to put these games out again in some like reasonable format that I can actually buy. So frankly, it's mainly just so I can actually pay for it and not be gouged price-wise. But I am really curious about it as a game. Like it lives in this weird space of like Toy Story adjacent. I played that Toy Story 2 game on PS1 and loved that, and it feels like a similar vibe to that in some senses. While also being like kind of simmy and just very different from what a lot of Nintendo games are.
So it's an adventure game at its core as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I would love to experience that one day. And it's sad that I don't think Skip are really doing much of note at the current moment, and all the games they've made since the original I don't think have been very well received. It's kind of like a Yoshi's Island situation where there's this first game that comes out, everyone loves it, and then every subsequent release is just like, nope, just another miss. Doesn't really come back to it, because Ziplash was certainly... We played Ziplash at an event, Bally, and weren't very impressed by it, to say the least. Yeah, so I would love to play that, but yeah, not much more to say about it because I've not played it yet. That's why I need it to be remastered.
The thing is, like, it almost got re-released over here on the Wii, the new Play Control.
Yeah.
And it was the only one of that new Play Control line that didn't actually get released outside of Japan.
What a shame, because it would have been so much more available in that case, and it wasn't. So great. Let's move on to Remake. Bally, what remake do you want to see?
I absolutely loved Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's probably like my favorite JRPG alongside Octopath Traveler, honestly. And I strongly believe the sort of SNES era deserves ground up remakes, reimaginings, a bit like Final Fantasy VII Remake. And I want to see in that style, or just full on 3D visualized world of Earthbound, fully remade, because I think there's a lot of obviously 2D Super Nintendo games that look good for their time, but I think just have really impressive stories and characters that I think deserve a full cinematic treatment.
Yeah, I thought about Earthbound as one, and for me, Earthbound is kind of perfect as it is. It's like, I think a lot of those Super Nintendo era games I don't gravitate towards for remakes just because their current form is so easy to go back to these days and still works. And I wonder if the comedy of Earthbound, the weird vibes of it translate to a remake or not. I'm sure it could be done, and I'm sure it's definitely possible.
I'd also want it remade because I know we're not really getting a new one, right? So like it's a way of re-enjoying how weird and amazing that game is.
Totally, yeah, I get that for sure, and I wonder if visually it would hew anywhere close to the weird, the like kind of claymation style of some of those characters that was in like old Nintendo magazines. That could be a cool approach for it.
Well, like it has been realized in 3D in like Super Smash Brothers Melee, like that stage on it, I believe, and
yes,
but let's have that, but in HD and as shiny and amazing as Final Fantasy VII.
Wasn't that proposed like art style they were going for with Earthbound 64?
I think so. Yeah.
There was like that screenshot of some developer that made like a claymation version of Earthbound and were like, or Mother 2, whatever, and it was like, okay, this is maybe what we could go for Mother 3. So having that claymation, it's maybe even similar to like Link's Awakening, that sort of look, perhaps.
Totally, yeah, that kind of toy-like, that would definitely fit with Earthbound's tone. Because you could see, I don't know, this would probably be really sad if they did the Diamond and Pearl remake look for Earthbound, but that would maybe work with the style of that game. Are you imagining this, Bally, as like a full-blown behind-the-back 3D walk around a town?
Yeah, behind-the-back walk around cinematic over the top, yeah. That kind of level.
Yeah, I don't know. I like that idea. I feel like it would be really hard to pull it off.
I agree. And I think people said that about Final Fantasy VII Remake, actually, and people were... I was personally also shocked that it stuck the landing so incredibly well.
Man, yeah, some of that weird stuff with Don Corneo and like the dressing up and all that stuff, like the way they handled it in the remake was just immaculate. And I was like blown away by how good it was for such a weird, quirky part of that original game. To keep it, but not only to keep it, to like make it work.
I found it weird and quirky way and far beyond that, so like I do agree it would be incredibly hard to do, and there would probably be parts that would be pretty weird or bad or just not done in the right way, but I do think there's enough there that it's just with the right team, and I don't know who within Nintendo on Earth would be able to do something like this, because Nintendo have never done anything near to what Final Fantasy VII Remake is, but I don't know, maybe they could let Square do it, who knows.
Maybe, yeah, for sure. Great. Dan, what would you love to see remade?
Having recently last year gone through and replayed Super Mario 64 through the 3D All-Stars collection. It's still one of my favourite games of all time. I love that game. Got 120
Didn't you just do like the DS game as well straight after?
I did.
Wild.
So like, I guess I didn't even think about the DS game actually while coming up with this idea. But basically, Super Mario 64, remake that game. Like, it's more of a boring answer compared to Bally's, like, Earthbound, like, full 3D remake thing, but
I know what you mean, right? Because I think a lot of people expected that when they were doing the 35th anniversary. When the rumors were going around, I was like, oh man, what if, like, they do 64 but in the Odyssey engine? Because, like, you look at that Princess Peach castle, all this, like, love they gave that in Odyssey, and it's like, imagine if they did that.
And have a full 3D camera, having, like, the full, like, movement and sort of style of Odyssey. Again, this almost sounds like a lazy sort of thing to say, but just get the Odyssey engine. Just get the Odyssey engine and put it in 64. I thought the same thing about Galaxy when Galaxy 2 came out, and it had the throwback Galaxy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
and it was like the Wumps Fortress, and it was like, oh, I want that. I want every Mario 64.
Just a full game of that,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And then obviously Odyssey came out, and then they had I guess there's slight spoilers for Odyssey, but there's the Mushroom Kingdom that you go to, and it's like, it's N64. Sorry, it's Mario 64 nostalgia overload. And
when I found that costume, the Mario 64 costume, I lost my fucking mind playing that game.
I don't think I've lost my shit more for just a costume in a game before than that.
No, never.
And obviously the moons turn into stars, and it even has the music. Anyway, like that just from every time I play a new 3D Mario, it's like, oh, and they have nostalgia to 64 again. I'm like, just give me 64 again in this engine. I would love that.
Yeah.
Because again, like 64, as cool as it is, the wall jumping is a little bit jank. The camera can be a bit jank, and
definitely. And Bally and I were kind of talking about this previously of, do we think they will, when would it happen? And I think we both agreed, like, probably by like the 50th anniversary of Mario, then they'd get around to it, knowing Nintendo. But
no, they'll just eventually release it in widescreen instead.
Yes, that will be the next re-release.
And everyone will find out it's actually just the 4x3 just cropped and stretched out.
Yeah, exactly. It's like on DS where you'd press the trigger and it would just like stretch the entire thing across it.
Or like the GBA to Game Boy Color sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, same thing going on there. So that's a good one. It's I think one that a lot of people will either go with Ocarina or Mario 64. Personally, I would probably want to see Ocarina more, just because I think
it's insane they've not done either though. Like, it's wild.
But like looking at Final Fantasy VII, it's the same era as Ocarina of Time, and just seeing how successful that was. If Nintendo were obviously they don't have the same like fidelity or budget. Probably they do have the budget, but like the ability to do something that high scope for Ocarina of Time, I would love to see it. I just don't know if or when they would want to, because it feels like Nintendo always want to focus on their biggest, greatest, newest thing, and if they take too much oxygen up of like Ocarina of Time is more impressive than the next Zelda is, that is maybe a worry for them.
I mean, Final Fantasy VII is full on overshadowing the new Final Fantasies, and I don't think Nintendo want to get anywhere near that realm of nostalgia,
I mean, it's funny that you mentioned though Ocarina of Time, because I've written down 2 games for every category just in case if one of you come up with one that I've already got on there.
Yes.
And Ocarina of Time is my other one that I had on there just in case.
Yes.
But the only reason why I picked Mario 64 over it was because we had the 3DS remake, which I feel like, even though I would love to see that and Majora's Mask, like here's the HD versions of those 3D games.
Mm-hmm.
Like we haven't, other than I guess 64 DS, but that's even older than an Ocarina of Time 3D.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't have the same. Like Ocarina of Time 3D feels like the definitive way to play that game. It's so streamlined and it looks great and just has all the fixes that you want. The art style is kind of updated to fit what the artwork was of Ocarina of Time at that era. So for sure, that sounds good. My choice, I had a couple as well. I think I'm going to go with Zelda 2. I think Zelda 2 is like one of those games that I will never play that, and I don't want to, and I don't think I'll enjoy it, and it just doesn't look like a fun time in any way. But it's really interesting. Like, it has RPG mechanics, it has a weird overworld and towns and all that stuff for the first time in the series, and like weird adventure game elements, but also a super interesting combat system, right? Like, I think a lot of people talk about Dark Souls and Zelda 2 in the same breath in many ways of like, hey, this combat and the complexity of it and the way that it worked was in some ways like the progenitor to that series. So I don't know, like when you think about Zelda 2 being remade, I can't imagine it as like a big budget, like you were saying for Earthbound, Bally. I do think of it still as a 2D game, but I think of it as a more refined 2D game, right? Like we've had so many amazing, Metroidvanias and stuff in recent memory, and Nintendo are certainly, well known for 2D style games and good looking ones. Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze is certainly one of those best examples.
Are you thinking of like a sort of Metroid Samus Return style then as a remake?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good comparison because that is also a old, really obtuse, hard to play Nintendo game that was a sequel that wasn't quite like the original. Like was with the case with all of those original releases, and I think that would work really nicely. I think they would have to overhaul the design a lot for Zelda 2, just because...
I was going to ask, because with like Link's Awakening, they kind of didn't do anything different structurally, but just made it, look nicer. And with Zelda 2, would they actually, beyond making it look nice, be brave enough and bold enough to structurally change some of the aspects that maybe haven't aged the best?
That is what I'm wondering.
Without annoying fans, Zelda 2 fans will be like, how dare they cut out that section that I was stuck on when I was 2 for 3 years,
Yeah, I think you can argue that Link's Awakening's design still kind of holds.
Yeah, it's way more modern. Yeah. It does.
It's more modern. That. I definitely think Link's Awakening still has a bunch of obtuse stuff that a lot of people, when they were playing it for the first time or just revisiting it, were like, yeah, it's not that great in a lot of senses. But when I look at Zelda 2, I'm like, woof, man, like, we gotta do something about this.
The structure is too open. Like, whenever I play Zelda 2, I have no idea where I'm going or what I'm doing.
Yeah, totally. And it's similar to the first game as well, right? Of just... you just walk around the overworld until you stumble across a thing, burn a bush, there's a staircase, do I get something? Maybe. And Zelda 1 would also be up on the table. I feel like Breath of the Wild in many ways is a remake of Zelda 1 though, right? Like in a sense of the spirit of Zelda 1. But I think Zelda 2 is still the black sheep of the series. It's still one of those games that is inscrutable, and I would love to see it just completely modernized and brought out again. And I feel like it's feasible. I feel like Nintendo have gone back and done that enough with some of these really old games that it's definitely on the table. So, yeah, Zelda 2 for me. Cool, let's close out with the reboot. Bally, what you got?
Let's reboot Advance Wars. It's not.
Of course it's
not getting a sequel. It's not getting a remake. It's not getting a remaster. So why don't we reboot it? I would make it a bit more if you look at something like a golf story or something where I want a character that you can walk around between towns during, but then it breaks out into the combat, the turn-based combat. So just a bit more JRPG in terms of like structure when it comes to talking to people and plot. And this, I think the setting arguably could remain the same as the original games, but just a bit more plot and character, that where you're linking things up and that it's not just one mission to the next. Because I think as strong as that format is, I do think a reboot deserves something more unique to it. So yeah, make it more involved, make it multiple characters, like a map that you can walk around, and it can still have like a fairly retro top-down style. It doesn't have to be like big full-on 3D or anything, and just kind of give me an intriguing story and good old-fashioned turn-based combat. And obviously there's going to be some new units and that sort of thing, but yeah, go for something like that.
Are you sure you don't want to make it like a dark, gritty reboot and have a post-apocalyptic thing? Because that worked so well for them last time.
Yeah, stick to the let's have happy clappy war with lots of colours, because that was a weird style that kind of worked at the time.
I own Dark Conflict, and yet I've never played it.
Yeah, I've never played the second two. So I've played some of Dual Strike, but not a ton. And then I've not touched Dark Conflict. But I want to try it.
Was Days of Ruin one of the? Or is that a different name?
I believe Days of Ruin and Dark Conflict are European and North American names, but I can't remember.
I see. Okay.
Oh
okay.
Yeah. Wait, which one's which?
Oh no, I have no idea the answer to that.
This is the problem, right? Is because everyone on the internet talks about the American name, and then we have our weird names, like Fluidity over here was called Hydroventure, and like stuff like that. Pushmo was Bull Blocks, right? Like
Magic Paintbrush.
It's like why?
Yeah,
the Magic Paintbrush. Yeah, but I think those are the same game, probably.
Yes, there's 4 games, and that's the 4th one.
Yeah, Days of Ruin was the US version, and Dark Conflict was this version,
right?
European.
Got you.
Okay,
yeah, that makes sense. I think that Advance Wars, if it did come back, would have to have this treatment, right? Because I don't think you can just be like, oh, here's another top-down Advance Wars game in the same style. I think, the way Fire Emblem has gone, Intelligent Systems has definitely booted up development on that series to make it a bit more AAA in some senses. And I think if you're going to do that with Advance Wars, you probably have to do a similar thing, right? And just... I guess make it more like, I wouldn't say like Battalion Wars, because Battalion Wars is very different from Advance Wars, but in some ways it's related. I don't know, that series is weird. I played some Battalion Wars 2 a couple of years ago, and it's got like a weird Pikmin vibe to it as well, in some senses.
I love the Battalion Wars, actually, even if they're they're very strange games, but I remember reading about them in the magazine and being like, oh, Advance Wars is coming to GameCube, and it's going to be a real-time game. What was it called? Advance Wars Under Fire or something, wasn't it?
Yes, I believe so. Very, very strange. Cool. Dan, what about you for your reboot?
My reboot, I want to reboot Ice Climbers.
Yeah.
So I've had this thought about Ice Climbers being like a 3D vertical style platformer. For ever since they got reintroduced into Smash Brothers Melee.
Nice.
I remember as a kid thinking, oh, right, they brought these characters back because surely they're going to be bringing back Ice Climbers as a franchise, right?
Yeah.
That's how it works. But no, Sakurai just brought it back because of, just liked Ice Climbers
just
as
reasons, he doesn't really have any... I feel like Nintendo these days just tell him what to do because they make all the deals, and then it's like, all right, I'll just put this person in. But,
and I guess my sort of elevator pitch of 3D Ice Climbers is, you working with the two of them together, and it's almost kind of like the early 2000s 3D platform where you have two characters working together, and you can control them individually for like splitting up for certain puzzles and stuff, but then they come together for like performing double jumps. You could even have an element of like one of them being taken away, so if you get hit or something, you lose that as a power up, so you don't have that extra double jump for certain things. But
you're making me think of like Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, but for ice climbers. Like two separate characters.
What are the ice climbers' names? Like something in Po or something? I can't remember.
Popo and Nana.
That's it, Popo and Nana.
Brothers: A Tale of Popo and Nana.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, like essentially just as a base level concept, a 3D platformer, but with ice climbers as like these two characters. I think that would be pretty cool, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah, and especially when you look at the fact that they have done this before with Kid Icarus, right?
Yeah.
Like that had 2 games, the Game Boy game and the original NES game, and then they're like, "But it's completely reimagined. This is a totally different thing." That is like, it feels like such fertile ground for cool ideas, right? You have these 2 characters, you have this like wintry setting, which is a little bit different from what Nintendo has worked with before. I don't know, people don't tend to like ice mechanics, but I'm sure you can do something interesting with that, and you know the 2 characters concept. I really like that idea. I think there's a lot of juice in it, and it feels like the sort of thing Nintendo would just blindside people with and be like, anyway, ice climbers are back just because we decided, you know.
Like, and my favorite style of 3D platform and in terms of the structure is always like, okay, here's like spiral mountain, or like his like a mountain thing that you want to climb up and get up to the top.
Yeah.
That could be like essentially the ice climbers. Like, it's a 3D collectathon kind of 3D platformer, but like here's most of the levels are all about getting to the top to move to the next level, sort of thing.
It's a very popular theme in games. Like, here's that mountain in the distance, and we're going to get to the top of it. And Nintendo deserve to do more around it.
Totally. Yeah, you can have some really interesting climbing mechanics in there. You know, their experience with Breath of the Wild could, have some kind of switch off between the 2 characters if one is like low on energy and things like that. You know. Yeah,
I was thinking, I guess in my head, more of a level structure, but I guess that would be pretty cool of having like a big open world ice climbers style Breath of the Wild game. Could you imagine, like, all of a sudden Nintendo's big budget game now is ice climbers?
Oh boy, yeah, that would
the Breath of the Wild team. They're not doing Zelda now. They're just going to make Ice Climbers reboot.
They cancelled that because they just fell in love with Popo and Nana. This is what they want to do now, you know. For sure, that would be very very fun.
It'd probably still be better than Balan Wonderworld.
Oh god, let's. Did you play that demo? I
did. I played the best version. I played the Switch version. Oh boy.
Oh boy. Okay. Oh man. I watched Giant Bomb play through that, and that was a trip. It was a trip.
And do you know the weird thing about that though? I didn't hate it because I guess
I'm okay.
I mean, it wasn't good. I'm not going to say it was good, but I have a soft spot for 3D platformers anyway.
Yeah. See, the wild thing is, I don't know you can even call it a platformer. Like, there's not much jumping in there, to be honest.
Very true.
It's a lot of just walking around, finding giant people, and the character models just disappear as soon as you get close to them.
And every button does just the same button.
Every button is jump, or
some characters don't even jump.
No. Wild. Yes, they should delay that game. That should not come out soon. That seems like a mess.
Square have got a history of putting out fantastic games.
Yes, no, absolutely. Cool. Well, my last one for the reboot is maybe a bit cheating because it's not a Nintendo franchise, but it's heavily associated with Nintendo. That's Super Monkey Ball, man. I need the series to come back so bad. And, they did that HD re-release of Banana Blitz, which they were like, buy this and then we'll do more. And people were like, why are you giving us Banana Blitz? It's not a
That was definitely someone at Sega going, right, okay, so Super Monkey Ball, we want to bring that back. What's the most popular one? Then look at a sales chart. Well, Banana Blitz sold the best, so we'll re-release that. Everyone must love that one, yeah?
What did they release it on?
Everything.
I believe it's current consoles, yeah. Oh, and it's on Switch as well.
Weird.
Yeah. So I played Banana Blitz on Wii when it came out. Same. We both played that at launch, and I liked it back then. It was a Wii game at launch, and I was very into the motion controls. I was like, this is pretty cool. But like, looking back on it now, it's not a very well designed game, and it is it's not a great Monkey Ball style game. It doesn't have the same challenge you want. It doesn't have the same kind of smart level design that series really was. Just the first 2 games, honestly, where that series was good, and the rest of the series has kind of been mediocre after it. They've never gotten back. I think one of the problems is that the lead on Monkey Ball, Nagoshi, just went and became a Yakuza member essentially. Like, he just made the entire Yakuza franchise. There's a hilarious like side-by-side screenshot of Nagoshi of like, this is what he looked like when he was working on Monkey Ball. He's like all smiles, like has this long hair, is just such a cool guy. And then side by side with him, like after making the Yakuza series, it's like him in a chair, like shaved head with 2 women beside him, and it's like the most staggering comparison. It's hilarious.
Like you say, like he just looks like a typical sort of Japanese game developer, and then now he's an actual member of the Yakuza.
Yes, exactly. Which probably doesn't bode too well for that series coming back. But I would love to see Monkey Ball come back with that same quality of level design, but maybe have a bit more of an open structure to it instead of being broken up into specific levels, right? Like stuff that Bowser's Fury,
like an adventure.
Yeah, I guess I never played that. Did that go well though? I don't know.
I never played it actually.
Yeah. But I mean, you could do that idea again. I feel like Bowser's Fury, you know, taking this idea of a platform and making it a bigger thing. And I think traversal is really fun in Monkey Ball. Moving from place to place is really fun. So you could definitely have spaces that you like do loop-de-loops in and explore, like something more exploratory that also has those levels with the challenge that you really want. And I think you probably need to put a bit more meat on the bone for a reboot, right? Like if you're going to bring this series back, I'm not sure the level-to-level arcadey style, you know, for a full-priced game is going to work for people, or at least Sega probably won't think it would work for people just from their mindset. So I think they would think, you know, we need to beef this out a little bit, make it a bit more of a deep experience.
Even if you kind of make it more like Mario 64 structure, perhaps, of like having a hub world that you go to, like other worlds or something. Or
totally.
Levels.
Yeah, that would work for me as well, is just having a space that you can roll around in and do, like, I don't know, like Tony Hawk style tricks maybe, like get some of that influence in there, but also, have those spaces that you jump into, and this is a properly designed challenge that has that kind of old classic Monkey Ball
I mean, because there's been rumours of a Monkey Ball 3 for a while. Or at
really,
least,
has there?
Well,
okay.
I say rumours, like, you know, people are thinking that there's definitely a Monkey... Sega definitely put Banana Blitz out as a test bed to see if there's interest in that franchise. Whether or not they're actually...
What year did they put that out, the remake?
I think it was only a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was like late... Sometime in 2019, I think it was, But I just want to know what Sega team would make it. Because, like, what even are Sega teams now? Like, you've got the Yakuza team, you've got Sonic team, but even, like, I don't know what
they've got Atlas, but Atlas are their own thing, right? They're not going to be doing that. So, I do wonder. I do think about, like, certain franchises, and if they don't have, like, a champion at that company who wants to make that game, what are the chances of it happening, right? So yeah, we'll see. But,
just make sure you don't have it a jump button, because that's not good.
No, definitely not. Yes,
or like if you're gonna do it, make it more like interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like it's got to have some more design behind it than just, I don't know, we put this here just because we thought you would, right?
It's like, okay, we've got a jump button now. I guess we'll put steps in, and then like you jump up about 10 steps. Like this is not fun. Why am I doing this?
No, it's not good. It doesn't work. Cool. Well, those are our remasters, remakes, reboots. Anyone have any bonus ones that they wanted to shout out before we close? When
I was saying about the remakes thing, a bit like Bally with Earthbound, I also had on there was Link to the Past, which I guess they kind of did with Link Between Worlds, but like I would love to see. You've seen like fan remakes of I think they did like a Link to the Past in Ocarina of Time style and vice versa. Like do like a demake of Ocarina of Time in like.
Oh, I'd love a demake. Demakes are such a cool concept that we just don't get. But yeah,
that could have been another segment actually. Like
what would you demake? Yeah, definitely. Like Nintendo almost did that with Breath of the Wild. Like one of the early concepts they showed was Zelda 1 with like Breath of the Wild physics in it, and I'm like, release that, man! I want to play that.
How cool would that be? Like his Breath of the Wild from like an 8-bit perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds very cool. Bally, any others?
Can't think of anything good off the top of my head.
All right, no probs. I thought. These are basically ones that I just want to play because I haven't played them. The Last Story, which was one of those Wii releases, part of the Operation Rainfall. It was made by Miss Walker, Sakaguchi Studio, former Final Fantasy lead, and they remade Xenoblade. They put Pandora's Tower on Wii U Virtual Console. They never re-released The Last Story, and it's one of those really expensive Wii games that I can't find and really want to play. So that's on my list, and I also would be interested in a remake of Beyond Good and Evil. I know they're doing whatever the hell they're doing with Beyond Good and Evil 2.
What has happened to that game?
Are they? Are you sure they are?
I don't know. They got Joseph Gordon-Levitt and getting people to make music or something. I have no idea. But yes, I've never played that game, and I think that would be really cool as a remake.
They did re-release those on the 360 and PS3 about 10 years ago now.
Yes, like HD versions of them.
Yeah, which I actually did play those versions.
Nice.
And I think that's a pretty solid way to play that game, because it's a solid game.
Cool.
But I'm with you. Like, were you thinking like a full-on remake, or?
Yeah, I was thinking something like a bigger kind of remake of that game. But yeah, I've played the start of that game a few times because I got like a CD-ROM for it years ago, and then it never really ran because I had just a really crappy laptop at the time. Never really ran properly, and I have been meaning to play it for some time. So I would like to go back to. I probably should go and find those remasters and then play those. But
yeah, that game is, if you like Zelda, like it's a good game in that vein. But the only problem about that game is that it definitely feels like a game that was meant for like a bigger franchise, or a bigger, like, here's a trilogy or something.
Yeah.
Like, not to spoil it, but it isn't just necessarily story-wise that it finishes on a cliffhanger. Like, the whole game itself just feels like it was building up to something, even from a gameplay perspective. They were going to keep building on, and it just kind of ends abruptly.
And then isn't the next game going to be a prequel anyway?
Yes, it's going to be a prequel, and I don't think they even really knew when they first revealed it what the hell it was going to be, because then they brought Jade in, which is the protagonist from the first game. So I was like, oh, wait, so she is in this? Because originally they said it was going to be set like 100 years before the first game. Right. Now clearly it isn't, because Jade's in it.
And it looks like they want to make Star Citizen. I don't know what they're going to make with that thing.
Was that shown off at E3 2018, 17?
It's been shown off a bunch, and...
the big one where they're flying around in ships, was that 18?
Yes, yeah.
I mean, originally it was even shown off like that CG render from like 2007 or something. That went dark
that
for
was
years.
totally different game as well. So, God, who the hell knows? That is one of those games that I just don't know will ever be released. It's just eternally in development.
The last Guardian of our time.
I think so. It's one of those, right? It's Half-Life 3 is the only one hanging on. I think Beyond Good and Evil 2 has just jumped on the bandwagon. You know?
At least like Half-Life 3 has never actually been announced.
Right.
And we had Alex, Half-Life Alex came out, and I imagine they probably are doing a Half-Life 3, but it hasn't been announced. Beyond Good and Evil 2 has been a thing for like
an idea,
over a decade.
Yes. Will Half-Life 3 be before or after a potential Portal 3?
Yeah,
I would love Portal 3. But
are you going to get a Half-Life Portal at some point? not Half-Life Portal, a Portal Alex, I should say. Like a 2.5.
VR, damn, dude.
Well, there's the developers of Half-Life Alyx said that they actually played around with a bunch of Valve projects.
Is VR Portal just a matter?
Well, they said that they did that. They tried Portal in VR, and they said that it made people so motion sick.
That's what my issue would be. Is like, boy, regular Portal makes me motion sick, so VR would just ruin me.
They could put a big warning on the box or something, and say that this is only for the strong of stomach.
There's a new attachment for this game that comes with the VR headset that it clips onto the bottom, and it's essentially a sick bag.
It's just a sick bag VR. Oh goodness, they really should make that. That would probably help certain people, myself included. Cool. Well, there we go. I think we talked a bunch about remakes and remasters and reboots and things, and it's good. I feel like we're going to just keep getting more of these. It just seems to be something that the industry likes doing, and frankly, I'm fine with it. I'm totally okay with it because we still get new stuff, right? I think it would be more of an issue for me if the industry was like more like the movie industry, where every movie is based on another property, or it's a sequel, or it's a reboot of something. Like it's so rare to get new stuff in that space these days.
And whenever you very rarely get a film remake that's ever good or better than the original.
Yeah,
like, it's always like
totally
like completely different with games where there's new mechanics and new gameplay systems that they can build upon and re-release. But whenever it's a film, I'm trying to think of a remake that's actually better than the original. Like, I guess the 1982 The Thing. I love that film, which is a remake. But but otherwise, like, again, that was a completely reimagining of the original of The Thing.
Right. Or I guess you could say something like Blade Runner 2049 is a very good movie, but it's a sequel. Yes, it's like a reboot in some senses. Yeah, I don't know. So
at least that was really, really good.
Yes. No, God, I love that movie. It's amazing.
Not like the 2010 or 2009 The Thing, which was fucking awful.
Oh boy, yeah. See, we are not horror fans here, so I have no experience with The Thing, and I'm not sure I want it.
I think a really good reboot from my limited film knowledge would be the Planet of the Apes trilogy. I think that's a really good one.
That's a good call for sure.
That's a good pick.
I like those ones a lot. Great. Well, that is pretty much going to wrap us up for the episode. Let's do some plugs and things and get on out of here. A reminder that we are going to be doing our Backlog Club. Paper Mario is up first, and of course later in the year we'll do Mario RPG. But get out your Wii Virtual Console, I guess, and get your gamepad charged.
Or your N64.
My gamepad. Or your N64, sure, absolutely. That's definitely viable. And, we have the Backlog Club thread in the Discord, so you can go post there. But also you can send your comments and your thoughts to our email address, Bally, which is...
Please send your emails to thisnintendolife@gmail.com. That's thisnintendolife@gmail.com.
Yes, we got some good emails recently, and we will do some more emails next time on the show. So, yes, look out for that. You can find us in various places. You can find the podcast Twitter at TNL Podcast, where we will put out updates about when the shows are out and things like that. You can find me at Lord NBZ. Dan, where can they find you on Twitter?
Twitter at SKDanT.
Fantastic. So I was meaning to ask you this, actually. Were you on the O&M forums back in the day as well?
I was a moderator.
Yes. Okay, wow, okay. Because obviously Bally and I were on the O&M forums, but I think we just lived in different worlds because we just basically lived on the Pokemon forums and never went anywhere else, right?
Oh.
So we were just there, and we never ventured out into any other parts of the forum. But yeah, so was your name on the forum Samus Killer Dan, or was it abbreviated on O&M?
It was Samus_Killer.
Okay. Oh, nice.
Which,
okay. Yeah.
As you can imagine, with a name like that, I was 13 at the time when I thought of that name.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that is such a 13-year-old name, but I love it.
The original Nintendo of Europe forums, before the O&M forums.
Yeah.
When you used to get the little sleeve in like a GameCube game, get the points, the stars or whatever it was called, right? So
yes.
I went onto it to get the stars or points, and it was like, create. I guess I'm giving you the origin for Samus Killer now. So,
yes.
But yeah, basically I went on there, and it was for Metroid Prime, and I was putting in the points for Metroid Prime, and I was like, it said create a username. I was like, I don't know, Metroid Killer, whatever, Metroid Killer. Metroid Killer's been taken. I was like, delete Metroid, put in Samus, done. And I'm still using that stupid name.
That makes sense, though, right? Because like you Samus is the Metroid Killer, but then if that's not available, I don't know, substitute it with the name of the character.
Literally just deleted half the name and put in Samus because it was what was
available. Yeah. So, yeah. Gosh, yeah. That's the. I feel like that's the origin story of so many names, right, on the internet. It's like something wasn't available, so I took this instead.
And you know, even when you're 13, you know it's dumb. But like you do it anyway, and you think, oh, whatever. When I think of a better username somewhere else, I'll use that. And then the next forum you go on and like, what can I think of? I'll just use Samus Killer because I did that as the last one as well. And the next thing, like I say, I'm now my 30s now, still using Samus Killer on.
Yeah,
things.
I mean it's the same with me with like Lord NBZ, because like NBZ is the name that I prefer to use, but it's 3 letters, so nowhere accepts 3 letters. Right. And so when I was playing RuneScape back in the day, I was like, I don't know, I've got to make myself sound important. Lord NBZ. Exactly, just give myself a title.
It's literally my username as well on my PlayStation account. And today, I actually phoned up PlayStation and had problems with my account, and I phoned up and they're like, okay, what's your username? It's like, yeah, it's SAMUS_KILLEI. Samus Killer, says that now?
They must be used to stuff like that, though.
I bet there's way worse names than that.
Definitely way worse. Fantastic. Yeah, so say your actual Twitter username again, so people, we'll put it in the description.
It's at SKDanT. The SK is the Samus Killer part, and then Dante being my name, like Dan Thomas.
Got you. Fantastic. Bally, where can they find you?
I'm on Twitter at Ballyman91. That's BALLYMAN 91.
Brilliant. You can, of course, find the show in various places. We're on YouTube. We're on, iTunes and places. You can download us. Spotify is a thing. You can listen to us there. Rate us, review us on iTunes, all those good things. Dan, where can they find all your other stuff on the internet that you do?
Only really elsewhere I'm at, I guess, is on YouTube, which is Project Falcon Punch. As we sort of mentioned earlier, I just sort of I do a lot of like either the current conversation videos, which is often about like recent topics, or I'll do top 10s when I can actually be bothered to edit because they take a long time. Yes. Or I often do. I don't know why I still do these because I know why I do them because I find them really fun and interesting. But I do the top 5s like Game of the Year stuff, where I get like a bunch of guests.
I really enjoy those videos.
Oh, thank you.
Those are great. Yeah.
And the reason why I get the people on there that I do is because those people, their own YouTube channels don't have they're not focused on like current games, I guess.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
and I got the idea from Giant Bomb actually, where they have the end of the year like guests on their website.
Yeah,
and
the guest list.
and they'll do the top 10s and stuff like, and you all like, I don't know, someone like I'm trying to think of someone who wouldn't be on from Giant Bomb, like, guest,
like Rami Ismail or someone.
like Rami Ismail, yes, for example. Like, you wouldn't know exactly what he played, so let's look at you, and he gives you a top 10 of the game. So
a lot of like game developers and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are these people playing while they're doing other things, I guess. So it's that was the concept of it. I get like people who wouldn't normally make their own top 10s or top 5s or whatever on their own channels.
Yeah. And
then and yes, it's a top 5 because it's like a conversational thing. So like, I make it into a video segment and like try and edit it so it's kind of relevant to the game we're talking about. Which oftentimes when someone goes, "Oh, here's this game," and it's like, what's that obscure game? Now I have to go and buy it on the place the Nintendo store just so I can get footage for it, because I don't want to be a cheap bastard and just get it from YouTube.
Yes. No, I am a cheap ass who gets it from YouTube many times.
I will admit I do that sometimes. It depends on the game. If it's like an indie game for a $5, I'm like, do you know what? They talked up that game and they said it was really good, so I'll play it and I'll get the footage for it. But if it's like, okay, Immortals Phoenix Rising, and it's like, I don't want to spend 30 quid on a game that I probably won't like.
Totally. I mean, like, they put out a demo. I actually tried the Switch demo for that, and oh boy, that's rough. That's not a platform.
Is. But it's things like that where it's like, oh, there's a demo for the game. Yes, I can just get the footage from the demo.
Perfect. Yes. No, because I did wonder about that, because I know you do take your own footage. I'm like, you're when you're talking about it in the video, you're often like, oh, I've not heard of this or whatever. But clearly, the footage you have taken is your own footage. So you've gone and bought the game and have taken the footage. Which mad respect for that, because yes, I just go on YouTube and find the best footage I can a lot of the time. Although I would like to do some more capturing, because there is a difference that you can perceive. I don't know that a regular person necessarily sees it, but I certainly see it in terms of quality of the footage. If you've downloaded it, it's compressed versus like good footage from an actual console.
And you can tell.
But anyway,
you can tell as well, like you say, like just in terms of the footage that's being used as well. If it's like, okay, this is someone playing the game, or compared to like a trailer footage.
Yes, totally, 100%. Great. I think that probably does it. Anything else, Bally, that I've missed? Oh, Patreon, of course. We've got to thank our patrons for supporting the show. Fantastic, Bally. You can support us on patreon.com/thisnintendolife, where, of course, you could have voted on our Backlog Club choice. You could have been the one person to break the tie, but, I guess we're going to do them both now, so that's how it goes. Bally, we've got some patrons to thank. We also got a new patron. I think we're going to be shouting out some new patrons whenever people join, just to give them some love. Yeah,
thank you to George64 for supporting us on the $5 tier patron. That's hugely appreciated. But thank you to all of our $10 tier patrons. They are, of course, Zach S, Atari Alex, Thomas, Matthew, and my fiancée Caroline. Thank you very much all for your support, and we will have another episode of This Nintendo Life coming out a week today, if you're listening to this on Monday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you want to hear Bally's thoughts on Shadow of the Colossus for the first time, I'm sure he'll
16 years late to the party, but...
I think a very good number there, very thematic for Shadow of the Colossus, right?
Exactly.
There you go.
Never too late to play that game. Brilliant game, that.
Great. Well, thank you once again, Dan, for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you on.
It's been an absolute joy. Thank you for having me on.
No worries. And yes, we will be back in a couple of weeks' time with another show. Till then, thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you very soon. Bye-bye, folks. Bye. The musical interlude used on today's show was the main theme from Project Triangle Strategy, copyright Square Enix 2021.